And okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce first Gabriel, who's going to be joining us as the moderator for our panelists. And so go ahead, Gabriel, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, we'll get going. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Jamie. My name is Gabriel Carrillo. I'm an instructional technology specialist in the Northeast Independent School District here in San Antonio, Texas. And been in education basically my whole life. And it's basically brought me to this point. I'm excited to be not only a Hoonuit ambassador, but to be a part of this event because number one, it's for a good cause. And number two, it's about student voice. And that's basically what we're all here for, student voice. How do we give those students voice? We have a bunch of presenters as well as panelists who are going to be on here. I'm going to be moderating the conversation and kind of jumping in and out, asking questions, but I'm really excited to learn something and be able to walk away, as well as everyone out there in hashtag HoonuitLand via YouTube. I guarantee you're going to walk away with something, especially from our student presenters. So that's who I'm really excited to hear from.
Yeah, definitely. And Gabriel, we're so excited. Your topic of podcasting, I've been dying to hear. As a matter of fact, funny enough, our next presenters here that we have that are starting us off, our student Curran is starting his own podcast, and he went out and bought his own equipment with what he's been able to raise so far. And I am just thrilled to death because what a little entrepreneur. He is a rock star, and we're just so honored to have him here. And he's kind of like, yeah, I can see his face right now, like, yeah, I'm a rock star, right? But he is a rock star, and being able to share that he's part of this event, I think is just incredible. So we're so excited to have you guys here. And why don't we go ahead and introduce you. Mary Alice and Curran, I have known for, I don't know, a couple years now. And
probably since 2015.
Really? Yeah. So I got to know Mary Alice through the DigCit Summit that she was hosting in the UK. And Curran got to go out with Mary Alice and present during that event. And from then on out, he has just been going to different countries and different locations, been a TEDx speaker. This little guy is rocking and rolling. He's 10 years old and he is not stopping. It's full force. So I can't wait to hear what you want to share with us about being a DigCit kid and how that really affects our world and where your journey has begun. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the floor.
Okay, well, I'm Mary Alice.
I'm Curran. I'm the Chief Kid Officer of DigCit Kids. It's digital citizenship for kids, by kids. We promote all the awesome stuff kids are doing on and offline. And we do like monthly challenges, and classrooms can be like student ambassadors.
And for anybody that doesn't know our story, we're a mother and son digital citizenship team, and we've really been on this journey together. Definitely, probably, unofficially since he was a toddler, but really officially, I think, since the first grade. And our story is that he gets to learn differently at home than he does at school. And so that's like the start of our journey. I can tell you, I was a faculty member. I was an associate professor at the University of St. Joseph teaching teachers. And I noticed as a faculty member that, all these ed tech courses and everybody was talking about the tool, and we were leading the conversation was like the cart was before the horse. And so I developed the first 3 credit, all 3 credit digital citizenship course, both at the undergrad and the grad level. And that's really probably how our journey started. You want to tell them about the tweet heard around the world?
Okay, so my mom was doing a project in her college class, and she tweeted, and she was trying to get as many responses around the world, and it was on a weekend, right?
Yeah, so I can tell you, I had some undergrads that were making some poor choices. And so to make something instead of like what to avoid, but something really positive, I wanted to see if I could get a tweet heard around the world. I had no idea if it could happen. And so I sent out the tweet, then I embedded the tweet in a blog, and then it was the weekend and we got all these responses. And what happened?
I was tallying them all up, and the computer was just going ding, 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 ding.
Yes, we were getting all these notifications, and it was like you would like make a comment, we got Romania, and you'd be like, we got Romania. And then it was like, where's Romania? And so I literally took out like a world map from the days that I was a middle school teacher in my classroom. And we were literally like in the map, finding these locations, and you were tallying and you were using highlighters. And this is when he was in the first grade. So as a result of that, what happened?
I asked if I could have my own blog.
Yeah, you wanted to have your own blog. And I was like, why do you need a blog? You're in the first grade. And he was like, why did you want it in the first grade?
I wanted to learn with the world.
Yeah, he's like, I want to keep learning with the world. So at the same time, we hosted the first Digital Citizenship Summit. The inaugural summit was on my college campus. That was October of 2015. So a lot of things were coinciding. And so when we got up for the final closing remarks, you really surprised me. What did you do?
I wanted to go up with my mom.
Yeah, and it wasn't planned. And I was like, do you have something to say?
I said, yeah. And we told our story, the tweet heard around the world.
Yeah. And, you leaned into the microphone and you were like, thank you very much. I mean, it was like the beginning of this journey. And so the Digital Citizenship Summit was the very first one. And from that, then we got to go to the UK that January. And what happened with your social media use from that first summit in October to when we went to the UK in January?
There was a thunderclap going on.
And anybody that doesn't know a thunderclap, it's like everybody makes this like pledge.
Yeah.
That on social media at the same time, the same message is going to go out like a wave, like a big thunderclap. And you wanted to participate.
So I asked if I could have my own Twitter account.
And what did mom say?
No, you have to be 13.
Yeah, we play by the rules, right? So for social media use, you're supposed to be 13 years old. So what did we decide to do instead?
We decided to create a mother and son Twitter account.
And that's really, I feel like, the serious launch into our whole journey. And so were you able to participate in the... Yeah, into the thunderclap? How many chats have you moderated?
A couple dozen.
At
maybe?
least you go and you moderate. And so this is an opportunity. I feel like it's like, driver's ed. Before you get the keys of the car, you got to learn the rules of the road. And so this was our opportunity to learn side by side. And we would like prepare the questions together, and we would like prepare to get them we time them on TweetDeck, and sometimes we were getting visuals all set up. And it was a teachable moment. So that was the start for the DigCit Summit UK. And then let's see. So if that was 2015. Oh, you've got to tell about, and the same time, all around this time, what happened about when you were in the first grade, the Rainforest Project?
When I was in first grade, we were doing a rainforest animal project, and I brought home a packet of like worksheets from like the 1950s. And like the first page was like animals you could choose from to research, and then second page was like fill in the blanks above the animal. The third page was like to make a diorama, and then the fourth page was, do you remember what it was?
I don't know, like your ecosystem or whatever. It was just like a regular packet, a worksheet packet. And what did you end up saying?
I asked if I could blog about it.
Yeah. And so you really wanted to learn about animals around the world. And so how many responses did you get?
100 maybe.
How many did you research? How many animals?
All of them.
All of them. And I can tell you from not only the educator perspective, but the parent perspective, so authentically engaged, so involved with this project. And then, so you got 100, you research them all. How did you finally make your decision? What did you do?
I put my favorites into a list, top 10, top 5, and then I finally got my final choice, the Bitterong.
And what is a Bitterong?
He has like a face of a bear and a body like a cat. He has a prehensile tail, and I picked him probably in the first grade, probably because he smells like buttered popcorn.
Okay. And when you're in the first grade, who doesn't love buttered popcorn? In fact, we were having some tech difficulties with our laptop. So we're on our iPhone, but we want to show you, we had slides. I'm just going to move the screen so you can see. I hope it shows. That's the Bitterong. And if you notice here, that response about the Bitterong came from Twitter, from a digital rainforest account out of Peru. And that's just pretty powerful. So between the tweet heard around the world, and then, which by the way, did it get around the world?
Yeah, I did.
How long did it take?
24 hours.
Amazing. How many states did we hit?
Every single one.
Every
and
single state and all around the world.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was amazing. So between that, between the Rainforest Animal Project, and then the first DigSit Summit, the DigSit Summit UK, we were on our way for connected learning. But what was happening in school? Were you learning this way in school?
No.
You want to describe how you learn in school since you've been in school?
I don't really learn in school. I just do worksheets all day. Pretty much.
So it's been pretty painful. So what did you do this summer? Because we got 2 other presenters joining us for HoonuitLIVE right now.
In the summer, I spoke in Nigeria.
But what else? Not only in Nigeria, before that in June.
In June, I spoke at ISTE. I was a student ignite speaker, and there was over 2,000 people in the audience.
Yeah, and there were 2 other, we got, I don't know if Austin's already on and Pablo, but 2 other student ignite speakers. And you were able to share like the big difference about how you learn at school and how you learn at home. Do you remember the one line you said and the teachers all went crazy about memorizing facts? Do you remember that?
Don't
You guys
ask
see
us to
Pablo
memorize
there?
something we can Google.
Can you say that again?
Don't ask us to memorize something we can Google.
Right. So, and the ISTE went crazy. Our big message is, your ultimate message is about learning about the world. What is it, like your ultimate message?
If you want to learn about the world, you have to learn with the world.
Yeah. And so the only way to do that is through connected learning. So have you done the Skype-a-thon before?
Yeah, I have.
Have you done it at school?
No.
So we do it at home, and thank goodness for time differences, because we're able to join the Skype-a-thon because of time differences. And so all of our connected learning opportunities happen at home. And I'm looking at so by the 3rd grade, let them know what you did in the 3rd grade.
I gave my first TEDx Youth talk. And then I realized that all the speakers were either like high school or in college, or they were adults. And I realized that we were talking to kids too late about digital citizenship. So I started my own company called DigSit Kids. So we could talk to kids earlier from like kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade.
Right. So when he was a TEDx youth speaker, he just made that comment that he was the youngest speaker. And I think that it probably originally started that, could we do an event for just kids? And then that idea turned into this company for DigSit Kids. And the theme of that TEDx Youth was what?
Risks and rewards.
Yeah, and ideas that were worth spreading. And honestly, your idea about getting more students involved for student choice and student voice really began at that TEDx Youth.
Hey, Mary Alice, I'm sorry
yes.
to interrupt you guys, but you are getting just tons of comments here. Like, people are going crazy. They're so excited to hear you guys. And I know some of the stuff that you might want to know is happening here on YouTube as you're sharing. Is one, we had a special guest joining in, Eugenia, if I'm saying that correctly.
From DigSit Summit, Mexico. We get to see you next week.
Yes, so she is the organizer over there in Mexico, getting that started, and super excited. It's so funny because students are watching you right now, Curran, and I think that's really powerful. It's powerful to know that right now you have kids watching. I saw this one last comment that I just had to stop you, because it said, my 8-year-old giggled at his answer about worksheets too, before she ran back to SpongeBob. So 11-year-old son echoed that. Definitely. I think our kids are dying for an opportunity to do what you do with DigSit Kids, and just connecting around the world and just moving beyond these worksheets. So we see Mindfair DC. We have Harvey coming on here and sharing. Lots of folks in here. Jeremy Bond saying hello.
Hello, Jeremy. He's from the inaugural DigSit Summit. He's the crew.
That is awesome. Henry,
and I'm so glad that you are reading these comments, because we're off our phone, and I can't see any. We definitely can't see any of those comments the way that our phone is set up. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you're sharing that. You know, Curran, about you had big advice from the DigSit from ISTE for teachers. And do you remember what that big, like, if they were going to ask their students anything, what was like that big message? So anybody that's an educator out there, what could teachers do differently?
Ask for kids how they would like to learn.
So we have a perfect example. What just happened last week? Why don't you tell that story?
I was doing a Native American project about the Pueblos, and we had to create a diorama in a shoebox.
Hold on, wait a second. You had to create a what?
Diorama in a shoebox.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure everybody got that. And so you got the directions and the rubric, and what happened?
I sent in a letter that I typed up on Google Docs and asking if I could do something different, do it online. And she said no to it. So
What'd she say? She just said it has to be a diorama. It has to be in a shoebox.
So we put a QR code in a shoebox.
And who inspired us? Is Amy Storr on right now? Amy inspired us because we originally thought, you had thought, oh, too bad we don't have a 3D printer. We could make something and put that in the shoebox. But Amy was like, wait a second, you could put a QR code. So what did you do? If the QR code was in the shoebox and then if you scanned it, where did it go?
I made it in Minecraft, and then I made a video like showing around and narrating.
And just kind of like that rainforest project, totally authentically engaged. The amount of time that he spent researching and then developing, I don't know, do I say you developing the world, developing the community, building, and then you created a script and then you narrated and made it a movie. I mean, it was really, this is like a lost opportunity. So for the educators out there, when we're just doing, and I get it, I was so pro teacher, that I know that there are pressures in our schools, but when we are, you know, very traditional and everybody has to do the same thing, whether it was that rainforest project or whether it was the diorama in the shoebox, that's asking students to do the same thing the same way and pass it in the same day. And we've just tried to model an alternative. So I think that perhaps we might come across as that we're bucking the system, but we're not bucking the system. We really want to model what it looks like to break down classroom walls so that we can learn and connect and collaborate in really meaningful and deliberate ways. Do you want to tell them what the big message is for DigSit Kids?
Our 3 ways to be DigSit Kids is share your voice with the world, solve problems and create solutions, and empower other kids.
So can anybody, like, how could you answer that question? How do you do those 3 things? How do you help students share their voice with the world? How do you help students be able to solve problems and create solutions? And then ultimately, how do we help students empower other students? Do you want to talk about the DigSit Kids Pledge? Because that's like, everybody should take this pledge.
It was inspired by President Barack Obama. I want to ask ourselves every day, how are we using technology to make a real difference in people's lives?
And how do we kind of change that message for DigSit Kids? It's really about how you, and that's just like, that could be the educator, that could be the parent, that could be the student. But the ultimate goal is that, I don't know, more student choice means more student voice. You want to talk about what the DigSit Kids monthly challenge is? Because this is pretty cool.
Every month we do a different monthly challenge. And this month we're doing How Do You Help Your Neighbor? Because of Hurricane Harvey, and we're adopting a classroom in Houston. And we got the monthly challenge translated into Arabic and Spanish. And
Eugenia in Mexico got to translate for us. But this is just another opportunity. And I can tell you, I'm teaching a graduate course again this semester. I have 5 students from Saudi Arabia, and they helped translate it into Arabic. And I never thought about language as access until I had these 5 students. And then we tweet this monthly challenge out, because who could a neighbor be?
A neighbor could be someone in your classroom, in your school, your next door neighbor, or around the world.
Yeah, around the world. And so my graduate students translated into Arabic, and members not in my PLN ended up tweeting back and saying, can you thank your graduate students for translating the DigSit Kids monthly challenge, because now my students have access. So, I mean, it's just a great opportunity, really to model breaking down classroom walls and
Mary Alice.
learning with other students around the world with, different languages. So I know, where are you going next week?
I'm going to Mexico next week for DigSit Summit Mexico.
Yeah. And so Mexico is the first Spanish speaking summit, which is really exciting. And then from Mexico, where will be the second Spanish speaking?
Spain.
In Madrid. And that's going to be with Maria. And then in November, what do we've got going on in November?
In November, we're having a DigSit Summit in Utah.
Yeah. And so that's the third annual DigSit Summit. And it's going to be in Utah. And we're most excited because there's going to be one day full of this youth extravaganza. So how can we promote the awesome ways that kids are using technologies? How can you use tech for good? And like those three things: how do you share your voice? How do you solve problems? And how do you empower others? So we're still looking for any examples. And I feel like actually HoonuitLIVE, anybody that's watching, please, 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 you can contact us. I will put you in touch. I don't know, Jamie, because I'm just focusing on this phone, but afterwards I will put it's digsitsummit2017.com. And if you clicked to the youth extravaganza, you would be able to see how you could make a submission. But we really want as many examples around the world.
Mary Alice, there's a lot going on, and I've been trying to interrupt you in between because I'm like, I got to get their attention. But I know you being on your phone, you can't see us all in the background waving at you.
I can't see anybody.
And you're not seeing our chat happening. But I will tell you that Amy is here and that she was saying hello and was excited to be here with you. We had a lot of questions that were happening early on, like, what is DigSit Summit? What does that mean? We had a great question. What tool did you use to create a diorama online? So as we're kind of moving through this, I know that we only have a few more minutes, but I wanted to certainly address that question. First off, what is DigSit Kids? What is DigSit Summit? And what tool do you use to create a diorama online?
What's DigSit Kids?
It's digital citizenship for kids by kids.
So it's just about for kids by kids. DigSit is really, it's DigSit for kids by kids. And we're just trying to really amplify the awesome things that kids are doing. So you can use the hashtag. It's also the Twitter handle, DigSit Kids. A summit is a conference, and we're having our third annual in November in Utah. But like we said, we're doing DigSit Summit Mexico, which I know we will be using social media tools to connect so people can learn, can join us, and we can learn with people around the world, which is really exciting. And a summit really is an opportunity to come together. Like I can tell you, just like a course, digital citizenship was always an add-on to an ed tech conference or to a bullying conference. And so in 2015, we carved out time and space specific to digital citizenship, which is, really to me about communities, local, global, and digital communities. And, how to be safe. It's got layers: how to be safe, how to be socially responsible, how to use tech for good. So those are our summits. And then I think the next question was, how did you create your virtual diorama?
So first,
What tool?
First I used Minecraft.
Oops, let me close the door because the dog. Keep going.
And then I wrote the script in Google Docs, and then I used OBS to record the video.
That is
awesome. Did we answer all the questions, Jamie?
Yes. One last thing that you mentioned that I think is so important. You asked how to help your neighbor. And what a lot of people don't know about this event is that for every 50 people that are registering, Hoonuit is donating a $50 gift card to a classroom that was affected by Hurricane Harvey. And when we got this started, that hurricane had just come through. It's actually directly impacted some of our ambassadors. And it has been just so sad, of course, to watch from the background and how do we help? What can we do? And so by being a part of this from the Hoonuit side to be able to support, it's been wonderful. So if you have not registered yet, I did put that link in there. I'm going to go ahead and just paste it in there one more time. But this is a way that you could do that without actually having to leave. You can just register right now. It has the information. I'm actually going to do a follow-up with everyone to be able to have some information as far as what went through today, who you all are, so to stay connected. and just a way for us to be able to give back to the community. And typically, Mary Alice, when we do this, it's all about this competition. We have competitions between our ambassadors. We have a lot of fun doing that. Usually we have some people that are little scoundrels and take over and cheat the system and win. But in this case, and we're laughing because we all know who that is, Mason. But you know, in this case, we are working together. We're working together for somebody else. And I think that's really powerful. And what you're sharing and what you're challenging kids to do, Corinne, is important. And maybe what you can share here in our final, and I know Gabriel's probably going to want to start off with you really quick before moving into the panelists, but Corinne, do you want to share one last thing as far as what has changed in your world from this? So going in and being connected, being, you know, doing DigSit Kids, doing the summits, going around and connecting with the world, like how is that any different than your friend that doesn't do that kind of stuff? What does that look like in a classroom? How is that different than what they experience?
What's the big takeaway?
I learn a lot differently.
Yeah. And like we've done like Passoscope EDU, like from inside, like from the playgrounds before school starts, and people will say, oh, what's everyone going to say when you get into school? And what do you end up saying?
They don't even know what I'm talking about.
No. And so even like I'll go in and try to be a mystery reader. And we did this with Derek Larson and Sarah Thomas. I broke the rules. What did we do? I was supposed to be the mystery reader.
We did a mystery Skype.
Right. So, you know, any opportunity to just try and introduce something different. Although every time we try to introduce something different, it seems like another door closes. So instead of seeing that as something really negative, we're just going to keep on. Like, this isn't about Corinne. This isn't just a personal story. This is about all kids. And what's your big mission for all kids?
All kids need digital access everywhere in the world, and home and at school.
Right. And so we're going to fight. This is this is like, we have fire in our belly about this. This isn't, you know, digital access. It's connected learning opportunities for all kids everywhere. Because if you want to learn about the world,
you have to learn with the world.
And if you're going to give your last big hashtag, what's the hashtag? Another hashtag that you use?
Hashtag be that kind of kid. And kind is all capitalized. And
it means a lot of things. That word kind means a lot of things. And so for that monthly challenge, what was the hashtag? Because it goes back to HoonuitLIVE about your neighbors.
Hashtag be that kind of neighbor.
Right. And then we've adapted it to be that kind of gamer, be that kind of teacher, be that kind of parent. But it's about thinking different. It's a different mindset. And it's an unbelievable journey. And you know, I've been teaching since 1993. This is the best teaching gig I have ever had, honestly.
And you know, what you guys may not know is that Corinne is actually our kid in the street. When he goes out to conferences, he's interviewing using Flipgrid. And we started this with Claudio Zavala. He was our man in the street. Corinne was our kid in the street, interviewing educators and students. And some of the students that you got to interview is going to be joining us tonight, which is really awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Gabriel, so that Gabriel, if you have a question to lead us, you know, with Corinne right now, and then to lead us into our panel, because we're rocking and rolling. 6:33.
Wow, that was a lot. I there was a couple of things that I kind of remembered, and some things that you touched upon, Corinne, that kind of reminded me. Number one, your project. I had a very similar project with my oldest son, who's actually playing Minecraft over here off to the side. But he had a project. Do you remember that project that you did where we created that video in YouTube? I mean, in Minecraft, where you had to Notre Dame. Yeah, they read the book, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and then he decided, it was like an open-ended project, and he said, I want to do something with technology, with Minecraft. So he said, I want to build the Notre Dame church and take people on a tour. And that's exactly what we did. So you and my son kind of think alike in that sense. The other thing I thought of was, how does your calendar look as a 10-year-old? You were in Nigeria not too long ago. You're going to Mexico.
Where were you last week?
Last week I was at Biff.
No, well, St. Louis. And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tell them about because this is just great. As a 10-year-old, who spoke after you?
Bernie Sanders.
Man, you're a certified rock star. You are a certified rock star.
I pull them a lot from school. I think it's time that, that project was not well received last week, and he was told it was not 3D. So I think it's time to homeschool. I mean, we've already been doing this, and we miss a lot of school anyways for these great learning opportunities.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get a DigSit Kids mobile learning bus. Maybe I don't have a bus, but I got a Subaru. It's got enough room for the 2 dogs, man. And we just go around to communities and we talk to people and we engage people in this critical conversation.
And you're going to build the whole child by doing that. You'll be able to build that whole child. And then the other thing I had a question was, you're 10 years old. You probably don't realize how much of an impact you're making on other people, not just yourself. I know that as you get older, you're going to realize that, and it's going to come full fruition as you become an adult. You're going to realize, wow, I didn't realize that, I had these opportunities in that. So, where I was last week, Kieran?
Where?
Walmart. You were in St. Louis and I was down the street at Walmart buying, toilet paper and other things around the house. So you've got this opportunity to actually chat and talk to people and make a positive impact with your student voice as a 10-year-old that most people as adults will probably never, ever get to experience. And I know it's a lot to take in, and you're probably not going to realize that till you're older, but everything that you're doing, keep doing it and do it for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Well, we want this for all students. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you guys for joining in. And don't forget to continue watching, because I bet they're going to be talking about you right now on the panel.
You know what we'll do? I will get off the phone, and now that the computer, see if I can get back on for the computer.
Yeah, that would be awesome. All right, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Gabriel, are you ready to rock and roll?
Let's do this.
All right.
All right.
You did good.
We have Mary Ellis, you're still on. We have quite a few people that are joining us. We have 5 panelists. I know one of our panelists was not able to make it here, Joy Schwartz. She also was heavily affected by the hurricane and lives down in Beaumont and lost everything. They have campuses getting condemned right now that are directly affecting her programs at school. And it was just a little overwhelming for her to join in tonight, understandably so. Well, we'll definitely miss her. But we do have, and I'll just go ahead and name them just so you don't have to look that up, Gabriel. We do have John here with us, Michelle, Cindy, and Austin. And maybe Curran will join in and share as well. So Gabriel, I'll let you go ahead and take over. And panelists, if you guys want to go ahead and unmute yourself, then we'll get going.
All right, I'm back on. And let's go ahead and do a quick screen share. I'm assuming everyone can see my screen here.
Yep.
Oh, all right. Okay, so my topic is podcast and podcasting. And
hold on real quick. We can't see your screen. We see you. We don't see your screen yet. There we go.
How about now?
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Yeah, that was just a little teaser. I did that on purpose. So my topic is podcasting, specifically podcasting for student voice. And also I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of creating a podcast, from beginning to, I don't want to call it the end because there really is no end. We're always learning and we're always pushing the envelope, if you want to call it that. But I'm going to talk a little bit about that and my experiences with it. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, my podcast is Ed Tech Bites, and it's EDTECH BITES. Somebody asked me, how come you didn't do the YTES? And I said, well, because I have a couple passions. Number one, I'm passionate about educational technology, especially when it comes to student learning. And the other passion of mine is food. I love to cook. I find it relaxing. I find it something that I don't feel is a chore, but something I actually enjoy doing. And because who doesn't like to eat good food? And what better food to eat than something you made yourself when you know what ingredients are going into it, right? We're all foodies. We all enjoy eating. So I took my spin on it. And one of the things that you kind of have to think about when you're thinking about doing a podcast is, what is your niche? What is available readily out there that is already being done? What can you do, and how can you augment to what's already out there? So that was kind of the mindset that I had kind of went into during this. And I've dabbled with the idea for quite some time, a couple years. It's to the point, and I'll get a little bit into that in each one, but here's my information if you want to get that. If not, I'll get you the code. That way, if you guys want to view this on your own, I'll do that. And so one of the things is the visual. You got to have a visual. I remember watching the HoonuitLIVE, the previous one from Jamie. Was that June or July?
It was June. It was June. Yeah.
Okay. So I remember watching Claudio Zavala talk about how he does all his visuals and that. And one of the things that really made me stop and think was, just like when we buy an album cover, whether it be through iTunes, through Google Play, through a physical CD. I don't know if anyone still spins CDs nowadays. Anyone out there? Okay. All right. So there's always an album art, and there's always something that kind of catches your eye. If you know anything about cooking and eating, they always say that you eat with your eyes first, then you actually taste the food. But if it doesn't look visually and aesthetically pleasing to you, it's not going to call your attention. So I wanted a logo that basically embodies what I'm about: technology and food. Yes. I'm
so sorry to interrupt you. We have you scheduled for your podcast here at the end, the last half an hour. This first piece is the panelist. I don't know if you've had a chance.
Oh,
I'm so sorry, but you know what?
I remember you mentioned that we might have.
Yeah, we're ready to go with the panelists, and I think we have our panelists all here ready to go to talk. Are you ready to go with that, and maybe get some questions addressed out there?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So our first panel of folks is the power of student voice, correct?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so I know we have Joy Schwartz, John Bimmerl, Michelle Smith, Cindy Hopkins, and Austin Tong, who's our student, right?
Yep.
All right, so student voice, the power of student voice. I have a specific question that I'd like to ask, and any one of you can actually join in from the panel and answer this one, and this will kind of build upon the other questions I have, and we'll also go forward with the questions that I'm going to formulate as we go, because that's just how my mind rolls. So the first question I have regarding student voice is this: how do you encourage students to speak up when they're shy, introverts, or at the age when it's no longer quote unquote cool to speak up? So one more time, how do you encourage students to speak up when they're shy, introverts, or when it's no longer cool to speak up? I'd like to hear some information about that.
Well,
Gabriel,
yeah.
sorry. One thing that I've done in the past with my students is I've sort of done the go-to meeting type survey where they're allowed to put in their 2 cents and add questions and put in their opinions, but they don't necessarily have to, stand up or raise their hand or be the first to speak.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I did in my class is I had a lot of kids who were very shy and didn't want to get up and talk to anybody, but wanted to be creative. And so they started doing paper slide videos in my class. And the fact that you can hear their voice but not see their face, they loved it because they could be creative, but they still have a level of immunity that people couldn't see their face. So that was one of the things that we started, but it depends on the kid. So you have to know your students and build a relationship with them to pick out the best tool for them to give them a voice.
Mm-hmm. This would be a good time for Austin to share for sure about what your thoughts are on, well, as a student, I mean, do you struggle with these types of things where you don't want to say the answer?
Well, one of the things is students who are shy or don't think it's cool, they say in chat rooms like in Shobi apps, or like they can type it in to the teacher without having any other students see, so they can express their feelings towards that project.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you, Austin, to kind of follow up on that. If you didn't have that tool, like a Google Chat or what have you, or something to type in, and do you think you would be that student who rose their hand, or would you be that student who kind of just sat back and took in the conversation?
One of the things is you gotta have to be brave and just ask and just get it out in the open. Just express yourself.
Got it. Good. Thank you. All right. Anyone else?
All right, Gabriel, do you want to go
All right.
move on to the next question?
Yeah, let's do so. Okay. So I really like.
And John, I will tell you, John is actually in the background and he raised his hand. He is here with us, but he's not on video yet. He's working on it. And so he is going to be hopping on here shortly. Maria is part of our panel for the next group. So maybe, Maria, do you mind hopping off for a little while in case we're hitting a limit where we can't get John in? I think you're part of that panel for the next panel. And then I think Pablo is our next presenter. So Pablo, you might want to stay on right now because of that. But I think we have all of our other panelists in here so far. So I apologize. John is trying to make it in here. Sorry, Gabriel.
No worries. All right. Shall I go on to the next question? Let's do it. Okay. So I really liked what I heard, which was the know your students. Back to that first question. I know that if I don't know people in a room, I'm not going to speak up.
Mhm.
If you build that rapport, you build that relationship, you start breaking down those barriers. So I'm glad you guys brought that up. Cool. So the second question I have for this panel, the Power Student Voice, is what are some things to not do when trying to promote student voice? So if I'm a teacher and I want to do something that promotes student voice with my class, what are some things that I should avoid?
Don't force kids to participate. Give them an opportunity, because when you force them, they will be even more resistant and won't give their voice, or will give you what they think you want to say or hear.
Very interesting. I like that. I like that you said that. It's when you force somebody to do something, you're not going to get a genuine response, a genuine answer, or what have you. I like that. All right. So, have you guys ever had any experiences with that? I mean, this is not a question that I had prepared, but I'm glad that you brought that up. But has anybody ever had an experience or been part of an audience or can recall a time as a student when you were forced to do something and you weren't prepared, weren't ready, or just weren't ready to expose yourself to the class in that way?
Well, my very first year of teaching, we're talking first 6 weeks of school, we did a class project and everybody had to present. And I pulled the popsicle sticks and I pulled the name of the student who was the shyest student in the class, and she started to cry. So what do you do?
Yeah.
And so I let everybody else present, and then she presented to me with everybody else in the classroom turned their backs because she didn't want anybody to see her. So she was okay with presenting to me. Well, by the end of the year, I didn't even remember that incident. By the end of the year, she was up presenting because she felt comfortable with her classmates. So when you do, the popsicle sticks, sometimes you pick this one child that hopes you don't pick them. So be compassionate when that happens.
Yeah. And that's one of those times where you have to read your audience, and they'll give you that body language. They'll tell you, I'm not ready. And there are some telltale signs that we could see as teachers, as professionals, and forget all that, as human beings, where you can tell that they're not ready. And like you said, that she actually presented towards the end of the year. It's not that she didn't want to present, maybe it's just that she wasn't ready yet. And that's that key word.
And now she's graduating from college, and she does public speaking all the time.
Wow. And I bet you she'll never forget that one time. What grade was that, if you don't mind me asking?
7th grade, but I forgot it. And it was another student at the end of the year. I always have the students fill out, what did you like about class, or what did you learn? And this other student was the one who reminded me. And he said, that was probably the biggest impact, me allowing her not to go first. That was the biggest impact for him.
Nice. And you remember, or you were recalled of that incident, and you called an audible, and you did what you had to do to make that student feel comfortable, right? Good. So not force. I'm glad that you brought that up. It cannot be force. Okay. Anyone else before we go on to question 3? Oh, I heard a bark.
Sorry about that. Dog's outside. I was going to say one thing, that, like Cindy said about giving them a sort of an option, or that the class turned around. I had a student who was sort of in the same boat, who did not want to present at all. And so I always gave her the option to just present to me, in an empty classroom. And yes, that slowly, where she would, she'd always bring her friends. It was sort of after school or during a study hall type of situation. And slowly we built that rapport where she felt comfortable enough for me. And then she would let her friends come in and they would watch. And then it was almost like, first it was 5 students, then it was 10 students. And then, by the end of the year, she was comfortable with the whole class, because we did slowly sort of build up her confidence and let her be herself, after a while, and just become who she was going to be.
That's so awesome. And as a teacher, what if you have that student who never gets to the point where they're ready to present? Do we force them at that point, or is it just one of those things where they're slowly going to break out of their shell?
I think it's a break out of your shell slowly. I mean, I was always very encouraging, gave very positive feedback, constructive criticism, but always, gave them that was awesome. I loved it. This is what you did wonderfully. And then let them, again, just kind of slowly develop. I'm hoping I always pushed them in that positive direction instead of going backwards.
Yeah.
So maybe the next time they got picked, they would have a bit more courage.
When it'll happen, when it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. They can't force it.
I would add too, that when you start getting into the kids that are really reluctant for a long period of time, I think the more you can give them choices going into it, and you kind of work deals with them almost. I've had success with students where we'd work a deal where early on I'd give them choices and I'd let them opt out of the actual, part that they were uncomfortable with. And then maybe I gave them other choices to do other things. So now with Flipgrid being so popular, that's a great example of one. But, all right, you can record it, only I'll watch it. And after we do that a couple times, eventually you have to work into, I'm giving you a break early on, then you've got to come back and you got to meet me at the end with what you're going to do and what they were required to do up front. I don't think you can let them off the hook completely because sometimes you do need to push them out of their comfort zone. But that choice up front, I think, becomes big bargaining chip, so to speak, for them, and showing them that you care enough that you are going to give them those options. I think that really creates a win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah, that's a very good point, that you have to set the precedence at the beginning and saying, I will work with you. I understand. And you slowly, maybe you come up with a plan. Maybe you tell them by this date, we're going to have this end of the year project or what have you. And part of your grade is going to be to present in front of the class because, certain TEKs do require, presentation or what have you, or standards, depending on what state you're in. But yeah, you got to be upfront with that. You can't just hit them like, today you're presenting in front of the class and that's it. Yeah. Good. Anyone else?
I would like to add that teachers should be like really close-minded, that have their mind set on, you must do this thing, or to give say alternate assignments or alternate ways to present. So instead of live presenting, a student can make an avatar, make a video to share in place of live presenting in front of an audience.
Good call.
And that comes back to choice, right? Giving options, not just set in stone. This is how it's going to be done.
Giving the student choice.
Student choice, more student voice. I like that. All right. Question 3. You guys ready? Well, even if you're not, here it comes anyway. So, all right. So question 3, can you share some examples or some stories of a lesson that maybe incorporated the use of and promotion of student voice in order to accomplish the task? So I know that we heard a couple of stories from some of our panelists, but if anyone wants to join in, Austin, I know you can probably share a time where you had a specific time where a teacher had you do something that involved, whether it be physical or digital voice. I'd love to hear of some examples and stories of what you guys have had experience in the past.
Well, in our STEAM class that we did, we had to do a presentation about ourselves. And some kids didn't actually have the iPads from the school at the time. They hadn't given them. So some kids actually kind of do a little play on a piece of paper. Well, some kids would do it on traditional Apple video, and some kids did it on iMovie, and I did an iMovie trailer, and that really worked out well for me in terms of the perspective. And I made it in the perspective of my cat.
Oh wow, that sounds pretty awesome. Cool. Thank you very much for sharing, Austin. John, you got anything? Any past experience you can recall?
We've got one. Well, we've got one kind of working right now with our student announcements that we're doing, and they just started it this school year with using Flipgrid, and they're trying to do that not necessarily daily, but as often as they can get it in. And it started off with a very rigid, here's what we're going to do. The principal is dictating that, and even the students now have been able to start to evolve that a little bit and put it in a situation where the kids are becoming more active, and that's an ongoing process too, which I think is another, it's not a specific example that you're asking of here, but it's another important piece to add in, where even sometimes if we have done things that we've kind of controlled it, we got to be able to listen to the students and recognize when they have an idea and let them start to shape something that might take on a different form. Even our announcements aren't taking on much of a different form, but it is now we're pushing and allowing those students to start creating that and having that avenue to be able to shape it and just basically make it become their own, I guess is really the essential of that. And as they make it become their own, we saw with Curran and everything else, I mean, it's going to go on and explode because students are able to do amazing things when we kind of get out of the way and we let them do what they need.
There's one specific word that I thought of as you were saying that, and that's ownership, and how important it is when students take their ownership of their learning. And a lot of times that ownership comes back, we're going back to student choice. When you give them that choice, they will, I mean, we saw it with Austin, we heard from him. Cindy, you mentioned something as well. Curran as well. He was, he's all about that choice and that voice. And after that happens and that seed is planted of, oh, I can do this, there's ownership and there's actual accountability on their part that they're going to be accountable for themselves and take ownership and put their best foot forward.
Gabriel, I'm going to say real quick that we have great conversations happening on YouTube right now. We have some folks talking about, why it's been important for them to, give that student choice and why that is a concept. Surprisingly, that is not a normal concept in every classroom. I think that it's interesting to see that is not the case. But I will say that we got some ideas on how to get students engaged. Flipgrid, Seesaw, Discovery Education, Board Builder, OneNote, and really important what she said here at the end, it isn't the tool, it's the knowledge. And I think we get so stuck on that tool sometimes that we forget about why we're having them use the tool to begin with. And it's really powerful to give our students, like the student choice concept, our students the chance to show this in multiple ways, because you're building your student up in more than just one way. It's great to fill out a worksheet. But there's so much more we want our kids to do beyond just worksheets and the skills that they need to have. So what a powerful thing. I love seeing those comments. Keep them coming, keep questions coming. And Gabriel, we're ready, I think, to move on to the next one.
All right. Sounds good. So here's question number 4. And it took me a while to formulate this question, but I feel it's a good one because it deals with things that we as teachers deal with all the time. And that's what we call the aha moments. So my question is this: a lot of great lessons come from these aha moments. Do you have an aha moment that you can recall that you were able to build a lesson on that actually promoted the student voice? So we've had those teachable moments. We might be teaching dividing with decimals, and someone says a comment or what have you, or the conversation kind of turns left. And it's one of those conversations that has to be had in the classroom. And it turns into this life lesson. Ooh, sorry about that. This lesson somehow. And have you ever built a lesson upon one of those moments that promoted student voice? Think about that. And we'd love to hear what you guys have experienced with these.
I'll chime in while the others are thinking.
I was about to draw straws right now and not give anyone a choice. Yeah.
Well, I can talk forever, so I'll try to be quiet because I don't want to dominate everybody else's time. But it wasn't an actual moment for me necessarily with building lessons. And unfortunately, I wasn't creative enough to come up with the lessons. But back when I was teaching Algebra 1, we had a new coordinator come in that really got us more hands-on with algebra. And I had fought through the worksheets and everything else. And here's 5 examples. Now you work 2 examples and all that. And when we got the students going hands-on with making predictions, doing things and measuring and getting their own measurements for it, making up their graphs. And then as they were building their graphs, those graphs evolved, and we let them kind of make mistakes early on in their graphs and let them discover and kind of figure out, hey, this is why this one's not working. This is why that's different than somebody else's. That was a huge thing for me as a teacher more than anything. I knew that that was important, but when I started seeing the kids and they got passionate about math and algebra, and that was that piece when we were talking earlier too about them owning their learning and having an avenue. I still controlled it. I knew what they were doing as far as the TEKs and everything else that needed to be covered. But the reality of it was they were now able to start having those kind of aha moments themselves. Again, I can't take credit for the lessons because we had some other teachers that were doing great things with that there when I was in Mansfield. But that for me was probably the biggest wake up call, saying that the more we can put them in control of figuring out what's going on with that lesson, the more powerful that was. So I'm going to be quiet and let some others talk though.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I mean, it comes back to ownership, and it comes back to they tend to be a little bit more passionate when the idea becomes theirs and when they formulate their own thoughts. And then now we're really tapping upon the synthesis and the evaluation, and not just, recall and understanding of information. There's a saying that I use when I talk about my son. I have another son who's labeled GT, and when I kind of talk about how he thinks, as far as how he goes about formulating ideas and understanding things, I always explain it as overstanding. He overstands things, and it's because he tends to take ownership and he really delves into the information more himself, and he creates his own shortcuts. He creates all these other things for himself, and it's because he has the ownership of his own learning when it comes to that. And I think I need to be quiet as well and let other people talk. So I'm going to mute and let someone else speak.
Gabrielle, I wanted to add, we were talking about ownership and then we're talking about aha moments. I don't know if this would necessarily be an aha moment, but I work a lot with we call it the STEAM Club in the middle school that I'm at. And the last major project we did in our STEAM Club was to make a house come alive, so to speak. So we were using different, circuit boards, completing the circuits, and we made spoons talk and the chairs creak and make noises when you sat in them. But the kids were divided into groups, and then those groups got to decide how they wanted their room per se. So there were rooms that, the living room did different things, the garage did different things, the bedroom did different things. But the kids got to take that sort of ownership of what did they want their different items in each of those rooms to do. And, they got to sort of explore what that meant. Like, what would a couch say when you sat on it? That kind of idea. And what would a spoon do when you put it in water? And what would it be thinking? And we really got to see sort of as a group, how did they decide to make things, quote unquote, come alive? And it was nice to see, because they couldn't wait to get to school after school, to come in and work on those STEAM projects and spend time. And we literally would have to kick them out of the library because, we wanted, it's really time to go home. It's 5:00, and then they couldn't wait to come back the next day to finish, building and recording their sounds and attributing things. And it was just awesome. And just to see them do that synthesis and evaluation and really get into it. And they had to use math, and they had to, do all kinds of different tech things that they'd never even thought could be possible. And we had to teach them all these different things. And sometimes they ended up teaching me, which was even better sometimes. So I really liked that project, and we'll definitely be repeating it.
Do you think that would have happened with a worksheet? Do you think kids would have been dying to stay after school to do one more worksheet?
Oh, completely. No. I was always the teacher that was like, can we do anything but a worksheet? What can we do that doesn't involve a worksheet with this, please? So I was always one like, there's got to be a better way to come up with something to do other than, yes, that.
Yeah. And the tools are out there. I mean, like Jamie said, a lot of times the focus is the tool when it should be the experience with the tool and the end product of the tool, or what it's going to turn into as far as the idea. But
Right.
those tools, they're out there. I mean, it's a matter of putting the two together: the idea, the concept, the standard that you want to teach, the end product you want,
Mhm.
and the tool is a means, not the end result.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, at the end of that project, we were able to go around videotaping everything and all the kids doing their each individual parts and showing us what was alive and what sounds it made. And then we even did put it on YouTube for the whole Trinity Christian Academy, community to view it, and got a lot of great feedback. We'll definitely be doing it again.
That's awesome.
So one of my aha moments came from a student. We we were getting ready to take our annual trip to our local aquarium. It's our field trip. And one of the students said, well, why can't we report on these animals? And I'm the type of teacher who jumps and then thinks about it later. And I said, I don't know, why can't you?
That's me.
And so all of my students became wildlife reporters. And we're back, we're talking 10 years ago where kids didn't have cell phones. So then it was like, oh, I just bit off more than I chew. And a bunch of people, I got some flip cameras, and my kids literally were wildlife reporters. So we've done that every single year. And it's amazing the videos that they put together. But all out of a kid saying, well, why can't we? And I said, well, I don't know, why not?
And that's an aha moment if I've ever heard one. Yeah. And flip camera, I haven't heard that in a long
That's
time.
old for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, I have 10 in my closet that sometimes get pulled out when they need to be.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, I think those are the main questions that I had for this particular panel on student voice and the power of it. Thank you very much, everyone, for chiming in. I think we got to hear a little bit from everyone, some experiences, some aha moments, what to do, and I think more importantly, what not to do when trying to promote student voice.
Is it okay if we end with Austin here before we move over to Pablo? But I definitely want to give Austin a chance to really speak. We had a lot of elementary students here tonight, which is fantastic. We have students that are actually sitting around us. I have my kids with the desk there. Don't make any noises right now. But we have these different ages of students, and I think they all vary. I think when they're young, they're a little bit more fearless, and as they get older and have different experiences. But I think that giving them a chance to fail is so important, and getting them to really risk and try is a crazy concept. But I think that's what we see with Curran, Pablo, and Austin's parents. We're seeing them step up and giving their kids a chance to take these huge risks and giving them the opportunity to be able to speak. So totally admire the parenting happening with these kids. But Austin, maybe you could share with us what do you want to do in the future? What is this going to be for you after tonight? After HoonuitLIVE, what is your ambition to continue speaking about student voice?
Well, it's hard to say what I'll do when I grow up because there's probably going to be a job that's invented later on in life. And I'm excited about ISTE next summer. I'm applied to present, and hopefully I'll present. And Twitter, and just trying to connect students with technology all together. And I'm so glad that I'm in a district that has iPads and has technology, and that teachers have fully embraced it with kids. And when I hear stories of like districts that don't have iPads, it makes me feel very unfortunate for them. And for districts that do have iPads, you hear about stories like Curran using Minecraft for a project, and yet he gets 0 credit. I mean, pardon my language, but that's crap.
That's awesome. You know, I think that that's true. It's unacceptable, and it's the kids that I think are going to come up and start standing for what should be changing here. And it's the kids' voices that are really going to affect those classrooms. And I am so thankful, Austin, for your voice and these other students here that have been represented. I love the fact that you said, I don't know about my job yet because I don't think it's been invented yet. And you know what? That's smart. That's a smart kid right there. Thank you guys so much for joining in as panelists. Everybody that joined in was patient. And our next presenter has been patient. He has been like on fire, ready to go for like 15 days. I think he's been ready to go from the beginning. It's been fantastic. And I am so thankful to have met Pablo. I had a chance to actually be in the background with Austin, Curran, and Pablo. And my daughter's over here joining me now. And so Pablo, the cool part about all of this is the fact that you have this genuine desire. And when I talked to your mom about this, I thought this was really interesting because when I said, is this something that like you had talked to him about, or like your other kids, are you doing this with your other kids? And she was like, no, like this is all him. And I just think that's so powerful to hear his motivation and to see what he wants to do really, and what he's doing with STEAM Nerds. I'm just going to let him roll with this. So Pablo, right now you're muted. I'm going to unmute you and get you going. But maybe why don't you start off with just sharing with us what got you into all of this?
Well, you probably already know that my name is Pablo Hernandez. On my YouTube channel, I am creating video series on STEAM topics, and you can subscribe to that. I want to thank the organizer of HoonuitLIVE for featuring student voices.
So I'm gonna be tech support. Hi, I'm Mom. I'm Renee Hernandez. So I am just gonna be tech support. So one moment, I'm gonna share the screen and then it'll wait for it.
Okay, waiting. Okay. Now you can see the slides.
Wait, hold on. There we go.
Yeah, okay, there.
So this picture here is from where?
At ISTE 2017. It's at San Antonio. And it was pretty cool.
Very cool.
So we are with at STEAM Nerds, and if you want to get a hold of my mom, / Miss Mom, it is Teach Plus Tech at Teach Plus Tech. Follow and subscribe on Twitter and at STEAM Nerds, on YouTube at STEAM Nerds.
So I do want to jump into one of the things that Pablo wants to do with the YouTube channel, which is something that he thought about over the summer. You know, he really wants to make science lessons and technology lessons and just lessons that are really geared for students. So more to come on that.
Yes.
And Renee and Pablo, right now you guys are probably in presentation mode. We just see the back. If you want to go ahead and unscreen share and then just screen share your whole screen so that we could see your presentation once you're done.
Oh, maybe this one. Hold on. This one?
Yes, perfect.
All right.
Now you can see it.
Here, we'll back up just a little tiny bit. Boom. Bam.
And now we're right here. As you can see, what is a STEAM nerd exactly? Well, I created STEAM nerds in 2nd grade when I saw the need. You see, my school started a STEAM club to teach robotics to the 5th and 6th graders, but I couldn't join because I was, quote, too young to learn coding. My mom was one of the reading teachers. No, not reading teachers. Robotic coding and programming teachers. So she let me join unofficially as a cleaner. So I quickly caught on and worked hard to learn more. By the 2nd semester of 2nd grade, I was a junior instructor because I was able to teach them the advanced features and programming that they wanted to learn. But kids my age were still not able to join. So I started a STEAM Nerd Summer Camp out of my house. So STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math, or mathematics, blah, whatever. Anybody, kid, or adult is a STEAM nerd. We are all able to create, collaborate, and build our own ideas for projects.
So do you want to stop and talk about what you see here in the picture? So these are pictures from his summer camp that he has out of the house.
Yes.
So what's going on here at this picture?
It's where we're coding something called microbit, which is a microprocessor. And, well, they had fun. We also do fun projects like making a nano robot. Then creating a maze with different materials.
So that right there's on the right side there, you can see they have some straws and pipe cleaners, and it's really just the things that we find at the dollar store. But that's something that, you know, again, any teacher can incorporate into their classroom. You know, you go to the dollar store, you grab a couple things, or even you go to the cafeteria and just grab a couple straws and cups and things.
And
just
forks and maybe even straw wrappers only. Well,
what's going on here? Talk about this one.
We play with Legos, but we not only play with them, we actually make challenges with them and imagine. Right now we are trying to create a pizza, and then later on we said add these toppings of an olive, and then they try and look for some Legos that look close to olives, and then they use their imagination and then put it on and stuff.
And then what's this one I hear on the right?
It's basically like the floor is lava challenge, except it has paper. And we move forward, and then the back person passes the back paper on to the front leader, and then the front leader steps on, and then they all move forward. The back person moves it on, and so on, until we get to the other side of the house.
So again, this is something that, again, you can just do in your classroom too. I mean, everyone has construction paper or line paper, and you just give them, you know, if you have 5 kids, maybe just give them 8 pieces of paper. And then they have to lay it on the ground and they have to walk around the room, but they can't talk. So it forces them to really, you know, work together and collaborate. So this was something that, you know, we kind of talked about and brainstormed, like, you know, what's a way that, you know, you can get more kids to work together and collaborate. And he was like, ooh, what happens if the floor was lava? And I was like, oh, okay. So, you know, we kind of brainstormed from there. But with the camp, it's something that, you know, he'll come up with different ideas, and, you know, we just kind of run with it. And sometimes I'll kind of jump in and go, well, you know, let's fine tune that one a little bit. And, but I'd say 99.9% of it is all Pablo.
Wow.
So this one is a video, which we don't need to play the whole thing, but this right here is something else that they did. And what did you use to make this video?
Well, we use a green screen to make the video, and then we used our iPad to like paste the image on the background of the green screen, and then we took turns talking about what we did, and we couldn't really make any silly noises or stuff, so it was really serious, but yet at the same time fun.
So one of the things too, just in, you know, again, they came up with the idea, you know, you saw a movie, or no, it wasn't a movie, it was Elmo, it was a Sesame Street show. And he was like, how is Elmo at this, you know, spot? And all of a sudden he's over here. And I was like, well, that's a green screen. So, you know, he did research on it from there. And he's like, oh, I want to, you know, do this in our next camp. I was like, okay, knock it out. So the kids, you know, they made storyboards, they planned it out, they wrote their script, and I'll just play just the tiniest little bit of this, and I'll put it.
Welcome to STEAM Nerds, a place for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Back to you, Mia.
So I'll just kind of skip through here. It's just cute because it has them going through and talking about the different things that they're doing. You can see how little Pablo was. So that one right there was from 2 years ago. You can see he didn't have his 2 front teeth.
Yeah,
there.
and now I have braces.
Yeah.
How can you add STEAM nerds to your classroom? Well, you can just have challenges, or anybody can be a STEAM nerd as long as they have a very good imagination that is endless. It's not just like to a limit where, okay, this is as much as I can imagine. I don't know what else to think of. It needs to be endless, endless, endless. Makerspace, you might be wondering what a makerspace is from ISTE 2017. Makerspace is a place where people can create, share, collaborate on, and also collaborate on projects while sharing ideas all at the same time.
So makerspace is something that I'm sure a lot of teachers that are on here have heard about, and STEAM Nerds really is almost the same thing of that. You know, this is just the kid version of it, you could say. But I think that one of the things that when Pablo came up with the name of STEAM Nerds, you know, was because when he was in school and, you know, he was, of course, you know, exploring different options and ways to show information that he learned. And of course, you know, I was like, oh, you know, you're such a nerd. And he's like, yeah, I am. I love being a nerd. So he came home, he was like, I'm a nerd, Mom. I was like, okay. But that's how he got the name of STEAM Nerds, because he's, you know, he wants to let kids know that it's okay to be nerdy and it's okay to want to learn and use your imagination.
Mm-hmm. Makerspace can be in any classroom and any age can do it, including if it's a toddler or an adult or even in between. Well,
Pablo, I was just going to tell you that we have a lot of people commenting on the incredible things you're doing on YouTube right now. Lots of talk about coding, code.org. We have Harvey, one of our learning ambassadors that does a lot, was sharing. Michelle Smith had mentioned, she was here on the panel before, and she said that she loved that you researched to find out what worked first. That is awesome. And then lots of conversation about maker spaces for sure in STEAM Club. So you are definitely inspiring, and Janine's here as well. So we have lots of people joining in, watching. So you're doing a fantastic job. Keep going, buddy.
Thank you.
Oh no, I gotta share.
Oh, sorry.
You should always give kids a choice on how to show their learning. How to show, but yet also what to show. Well, we use little bits, which are those little contraptions and little circuits. We also have fun with just paper and markers and stuff. We also have virtual reality / VR or AR. And as you can see, we are coloring a volcano, and then I was making it explode or making it look realistic, making it look imaginative, just all kinds of stuff. Like I was adding nature around it and stuff like that.
So one of the things too with him having the camp is it's open really to any age. I'll definitely say not toddlers because they're a little too young, but really any age. And it really gives kids a chance, especially if they don't get the opportunity to have exposure to, these different tools and, virtual reality and, just really having open-ended problems and projects. So that's one of the things that, I enjoy watching, of course, as a, educator myself, just in seeing him get excited about it. And then of course, him bringing in other kids. So it's really about giving kids that time to really learn and explore.
So you should always allow time for innovation.
You say something?
I was just going to say a couple questions that were happening is one, Michael said that Curran on Twitter asked for Pablo to make sure to share your YouTube channel so that other people can join in. I'll go and look for it and add it to the chat unless somebody beats me to the punch on that. And then also there is questions about where do you buy most of your gear? Like, where do you get your stuff? Do you have discounts for education, donations, grants? There was a big announcement, $200 million from the White House recently, specifically geared towards STEAM. And so there's lots of great things happening. And I think they want to know, well, like, where are you getting all this cool stuff?
Well, we use a bunch of ordinary house stuff and stuff from the dollar store and from the grocery store, like the plastic bags and stuff. And yeah.
And in regards of like the technology, the iPad is, really it's my husband's iPad. So we just borrowed that. But a lot of the technology that we use in the camp was really just technology that mommy just buys because mommy likes technology. So anytime that, he wants to learn about something or he hears other kids are talking about, oh, I really wish I could learn about, whatever it might be, this programming language or, how to, do the drag and drop coding or different things like that. He hears about it and then I find out about it because he comes home and he's studying on something. And I'm like, well, what are you studying? He's like, oh, well, I heard some kids want to learn how to do, JavaScript. So I'm learning JavaScript. I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to be like the school of knowledge for everything, but you know, it's like he wants to make sure that, you know, kids have that opportunity. And of course, you know, I just kind of get suckered in. So I'm like, well, yeah, it's for the kids. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get it. So, you know, that we don't get everything, I'll say that. But, you know, the things that we do get, you know, are really just, again, because it's something that we see that, you know, we want to give kids the opportunity to have experience with something. And, you know, of course, it's something that, you know, he wants to have a part of, you know, with his camp. But definitely the things that he wants to do later on, I definitely think I'm going to have to, you know, maybe take a little step back and say, okay, well, we do need to look at, you know, maybe getting a grant or some things. I know there's things that he wants to, you know, really take this further. And I don't have the expertise for that. So we'll definitely have to, any advice out there, let me know.
Yeah. We got to get you a sponsor. I don't know.
For sure.
You know? I heard about this one company called Hoonuit, but I don't know. We'll have to check it out.
We'll contact them. Yeah. Yeah. But so let me go through these other ones. So
Trash can be treasure, but how exactly do you give kids a choice? All you need to do is just ask them what they want to learn, and then, yeah. There is always time to be creative. So, like, let's say you're a teacher, and whenever they're finished early, you can, like, give them some extra challenge, is to, like, keep their brain going at the normal pace instead of, like, just taking a break. Well, one of my quotes are, focus on the future and your goals, and don't focus on the present, because the present is about to become the past. You see, all of the things that everybody does, like, speaking of teachers plan for tests that are, like, about to come next week or tomorrow or the day after tomorrow or something like that. Or so they can go beyond that test and they can do, like, the STAR test, or they can just focus on the future and the future of your goals and stuff like that. It doesn't matter if you have one person or 100, because you have something to share and it could affect change and growth for that one person. Then they will share what they have learned from many people. That's another one of the quotes. Use this hashtag to promote other student work that is very creative. And I really want other kids to gather ideas and collaborate with other creative kids. It's just hashtag seamless. Yeah.
So this was a hashtag that was introduced at ISD when Pablo was speaking, and he really wants to have kids, but really teachers, to use the hashtag STEAM Nerds, so that way, you know, other kids, as they, you know, become official STEAM nerds, they can look through and see other creative ideas, you know, other things that they're doing in their makerspace, or, you know, creative ways that they're showcasing their knowledge in their classroom. So again, like Kieran was just on, he was talking about what he did with Minecraft. That right there would be a perfect thing, you know, to tweet out and, you know, show like, hey, hashtag STEAM Nerds, you know, I'm a STEAM Nerds too.
So then again, quick refresher, follow and subscribe on YouTube and Twitter at STEAM Nerds and STEAM Nerds.
That is great.
So last but not least, any questions?
Yes, we actually do have a couple questions. So I'm actually working on getting everybody's handles on Twitter. I did post the link to your YouTube channel, which was
Yes.
awesome. And you are STEAM Nerds on Twitter as well. And I always say, oh, is it nerds or nerd? And because you're doing you're doing summer camp, so of course it's nerds. And I want to tell you that I used to do a technology camp for kids, and this was kind of before its time because technology was still just this add-on, I feel like. But we did a tech camp where we did a lot of the stuff you were doing. We did a little bit of coding, because all I know is a little bit of coding. And we did lots of video making and lots of fun things like this. And we were tech geeks and tech nerds. So we totally claim that too with you. So I'm there with you. I am a tech nerd with you. And I want to just follow up on some of the questions. What would you say to encourage kids that don't have a technology teacher or a mom like you have? So how do they get into something like this that don't have the resources maybe that you already have?
Well, that is a pretty good question.
And they can learn on their own. They could Google and ask a teacher for help.
And they can Google, ask a teacher for help, and even just search on some other search engines or something. Stuff like that.
Sounds like you were pretty active to go out and learn. It wasn't somebody telling you, hey, you better know coding. But you were interested and you researched and you're coming back saying what you want to do. So it was very self-motivated to go out and learn. And I think that's a lot of our students may not know where to begin. But your camp, how many kids, looking forward, do you anticipate having part of your camp this summer?
Well, I want 30 at least.
All right.
At least 30.
Yeah. And do you guys charge anything for the kids that are joining in? And are they there the whole week? Is it a one-day thing, or what do you do?
Well, they can choose between there the whole week and a one-day thing on our website of www.steamnerds.com. And we just charge very tiny.
Yeah. I think that's great, because I saw the shirts. The kids were all wearing the shirts. I'm assuming to kind of cover that cost at least. That is fantastic. Harvey wanted to say that you can totally do this for profit at birthday parties. Like, you'd be able to put something like this together, and I think kids would be all over that. And Pablo, I will be talking to you more about the augmented and virtual reality, by the way. We heard Curran talk about a bus, Mary Alice talk about a bus. And I had a chance to actually go into a VR bus recently, and it was all video games. It was a gaming bus called Gamester's Paradise. And it was really cool. Lots of awesome technology. I think it's right up your alley. But we do hear more and more, especially Maker, that it's becoming mobile and traveling around and giving kids a chance to make. So one, I know I'll be talking to you about Global Maker Day. We've already been chatting about that. But two is we are so privileged to have you part of what you're doing here, and to be able to share out and amplify your voice and as much as we can. And, Curran's our only student ambassador, just saying, we have no limit on that. So we're looking for incredible kids like you to come and join, and us to help support you. So thank you so much. Pablo, is there anything that you want to, I'm looking right now at any questions, but is there anything that you want to conclude on?
Well, I appreciate my teachers, anybody that I know who try different technology and lessons, not only in class, but in other places too. It just makes learning fun. That's all.
That's awesome. Pablo, you're a rock star. And don't forget the little people one day when you're famous and, like, hey, Pablo, you remember me? No, I don't know who you are. I'm just going to remind you about this very moment right now. So thank you again for joining us. And maybe we'll share a stage again, come ISTE, and have a lot of fun. And maybe, our things are still being submitted right now. Maybe we can get some student activated activities set up for some sessions. So our 3 students that have joined in, maybe we can collaborate about coming up with a proposal together and getting some things going that you guys can really lead. So excited to see what you're going to be doing here in the future. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're excited to be a part of it. So thank you. Thank you, Renee, for being tech support. Bye, guys.
That's what I do. I'm tech support.
That's awesome. That was fantastic. Wow. I don't know about you guys if you're watching here and just feeling like, what just happened? That kid knows way more than I do. And that is the truth, because he knows a lot more than I do. And so on one hand, I can see how teachers could be a little intimidated by that. On the other hand, I think what an inspiration to so many kids and to us as adults that we can help support him and learn from him. I have so much to learn from him for sure. Most of the things that he was talking about, I had no idea what it was. I was just saying that, well, I'm going to just take his word for it that exists, because I've never touched that before. So cool. Very cool to see what he's doing and just thinking outside of the box. And Gabriel, I can see you in the background. Do you have anything that you wanted to follow up with Pablo before leading into our panel?
I have one question for you. You sound very passionate, Pablo. I would love to hear you order your favorite meal at a restaurant, just because you have so much passion. I would love to hear you say, I want the mac and cheese with the melted wheat cheese. And just the way you speak, you come off as you know your stuff. And it sounds like you're very passionate about STEAM and about working with students after school. You guys have done this on your own. I mean, I'm assuming there was no director involved, no teacher-led thing. I mean, you obviously had to get permission, but you did this all on your own, right?
Yeah.
You and your group of STEAM nerds. I really don't like the word nerds. I have a problem using the word nerds, but the way you're using it has such a great connotation to it. So I love what you're doing. I'm actually floored at our student presenters. I mean, I'm learning more than I could have ever imagined from you 3. So thank you very much. Keep doing what you're doing and keep the passion alive.
Thank you.
Awesome. We have our panelists still joining in, and I'll go ahead and introduce them so we can get that started, because we have on our panel, we have Alan, we have, let's see, we have Maria joining in, who's been joining us, and she could share a little bit about where she's joining us from, which is super cool. We have Michael joining us as well and sharing. We have Rochelle joining in. I think Amy, did I already mention Amy? Amy is also joining us as a panelist. So excited. And I know, and Mary Alice is like, Amy, and we're all excited as well. And so what I'll do is, maybe this time around, Gabriel, are you okay with this? Is let them just kind of introduce themselves so that we can get a little bit of background about who they are, where they're from, and then we'll move into question 1. How does that sound?
Perfect. I like that.
Awesome. Why don't we start off with Alan? Alan, why don't you unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Hi, I'm Alan. I'm a technology training coordinator with Madison College in Madison, Madison, Wisconsin. I was talking about New Mexico earlier today.
Awesome. So glad to have you. And he is one of our higher ed ambassadors joining in. And let me just tell you, meeting Alan has been like the highlight of this ambassador program. He is fantastic. He's jumped on board from day 1 and has just been running full steam. And he's taught us so much from the higher ed side. It has been incredible. So glad to have you here today, Alan. Let's go over to Amy. Are you ready to go, Amy?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, so totally not cool that I'm following Pablo, that we're following him. Like, that was the coolest thing. I'm sitting in my classroom, cutting out lamination, nerding out to him and all the great kids that were on. My name is Amy Storr. I am an instructional coach at a K-5 campus in Montgomery, Texas. And I'm also the lead technology integration mentor for our district, and super excited about tonight's chat.
Very cool. Amy, you're awesome. Amy is a great friend, and she is a trooper. If you want to know the real deal, Amy is it for sure. All right, we have Michael. I'm just kind of going down the list here. So Michael, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and where you're from?
Yes, Michael Drezik. I am a District Technology Integration Specialist for the Lakeshore Central School District in Angola, New York, just outside of Buffalo. So the total other side of the state from where New York City is. And I work with about 2,600 students throughout the district. I was formerly a math teacher at the middle school for 10 years, and now I'm in the 4th year in this role. So excited to be here.
Very cool. Michael is awesome. And every time something happens on the East Coast, I'm like, how close are you to that? And he's like, I'm still 15 hours away from there. I just assume, oh, you're over there somewhere. So you must be close to everybody on the East Coast. But he is, oh my gosh, a rock star of all trades and ed tech. And very rarely can you share something with Michael that he doesn't already know, that he's or that he doesn't know. I feel like he is a genuine rock star in the ed tech world. So Michael, thank you so much for joining us. And Rochelle, she is awesome. Rochelle, why don't you share where you're coming from?
I am on the East Coast.
Right next to Michael.
I might be. Now, I'm outside of Pittsburgh, and I have been teaching at my current school for 21 years, and I've taught French. Now I teach Spanish and a STEAM course in emerging technology. So it's pretty exciting, like getting to teach the language, but also using the technology in the language and teaching the STEAM course. So I'm just excited to be part of this panel tonight with all of these other great people.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining in, Rochelle. We have a special guest. I call her a guest. She's one of our learning ambassadors, but what a cool thing to have Maria here with us, joining outside of the US and to share her wisdom and her enthusiasm for education. And Maria, why don't you go ahead and hopefully you're still there. A while back you were here. I just want to make sure you're good to go to turn on your video and get your microphone going. So if you're ready to go, we're ready to hear from you.
All right, let's do this.
All right.
So you guys ready for some questions? All right, so the topic at hand is social media tools to get connected. So I've come up with a handful of questions that I would, and I think everyone out there would love to hear you guys respond to. So the first question that I have is, what would you tell someone who wants to start using all forms of social media all at one time? So they're coming from nothing and they're starting to get on the social media train and starting to buy in because they see the value of it and they want to start using everything at one time. What advice would you have for somebody in that scenario?
Can I pipe in on that one? This is Alan.
Absolutely.
All right. Focus on one social media platform at a time, because if you try to do every single one, you're going to run into a lot of different issues. Log in with this, log in with that. You're not going to develop a community, which is necessary to kind of build your personal learning network or to find different topics. It just gets all convoluted, and you want to choose maybe 1, 2, at max 3 different social media tools that you are comfortable with in order to be more effective.
Yeah, I would agree. For sure, take baby steps, because there's so much power in connected classrooms, and you don't want to burn yourself out the instant you decide to start trying out social media. So for sure, baby steps when it comes to choosing a tool.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello. First of all, I want to thank you, Jamie, for the opportunity to talk with all you all. I have to apologize for my English that is not too good, so you have to be patient with me, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Why don't you share where you're joining from, Maria?
Okay, I am a history teacher at the Metropolitan University in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm teaching 25 years just now, and I teach Asian history, medieval history, modern history, And I have to say that I am very moved for all that the testimonial that the kids I already give it to us through this chat, this conversation, because I work with older students. I work with like 25, 24 years old, and I'm a history teacher. And as you know, many of them don't like history, don't like study the past of their countries. So maybe if they were have better teachers, maybe if they um, have the opportunities that Pablo and the other kids, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but I think it's great when teachers are there to do different things to teach different subjects. So in my experience, if I may, I want to talk to you about social medias and the use that I gave to these tools in my class. And I think, I don't know if you are aware about all the problems that we have in my country right now. Venezuela have many problems, educational, security, social. We have so many problems, and many of our young people have to immigrate to other countries around the world. So I think that social media is a very effective way to keep in touch with each other. And I personally have some projects that I think are interesting and I want to share with you. First of all, um, in history, Venezuelan history specifically, I got in touch with the University of Javeriana de Bogotá, Colombia. I don't know what to say that, sorry. The University Javeriana in Bogotá, Colombia. And we have the same past in a kind of way. We have the same characters, the history characters like Simon Bolivar. So I contact with the teacher, the history teacher in Colombia, and we start a project and we assign our student to create an account in Instagram and show us the heritage of Simon Bolivar in Colombia. And my students in Venezuela share our heritage of Simon Bolivar in Caracas, Venezuela. Bolivar was born here, but he have and still have many I don't know, importance in their history. So we work in a history character, Simon Bolivar. With Mexico, with the Puebla University, we have a project about native heritage. We work with the Aztecas and the Mayas, and we also have native heritage in Venezuela. So in this case, we create like a collaborative. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Well, Maria, we have a couple panelists also in the question, so feel free to jump in. I think Gabriel has a few more questions for everybody, and I don't want to run out of time and not give everybody a chance to speak up. But what other panelists do we have, Gabriel, that we haven't had a chance to hear from yet?
I think everyone spoke a little bit, most likely introduction, but
okay.
I know Alan responded to that social media question of wanting to do all at one time. And I liked your response is the focus on one. Does anyone want to maybe give their 2 cents on that particular question, or should we just go on to the next one?
I mean, I'll just jump in here for a second. This is Michael. You know, I've heard people say that, keeping up with social media, or even Twitter for that matter, specifically, is like drinking from a fire hydrant. So it's, finding a way, like Alan said, to start small, start with one, and then Amy saying the baby steps. I definitely agree with both of those. It's easy to get overwhelmed. There's just so much information out there. So just finding a way to organize it. And I think if you're not jumping in off the deep end first, right out of the gate, is probably a smart move.
Thank you. All right. So I think we can go ahead and go to question 2. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that what you brought up about drinking water from a fire hydrant kind of ties into question 2. So my question to the panel now is there such a thing as overusing social media? What does it look like if you overuse it? And how does one know if they are overusing it?
Rochelle, why don't we hear from you? We haven't had a chance.
Yeah.
I was waiting for question 3. I was hoping it was like the question about, why were you apprehensive about using social media or something? Because it took me so long to kind of get on board with it, because I didn't see the value in it. But I will answer question number 2. Yeah, there is too much, I think. If you're spending just so much time interacting and focused on that you're losing like the human connection and your surroundings, and trying to focus too much on liking things, or I don't know, you're just connected to the device. I mean, I'm guilty of that a lot of the time, because I do have all of these social media accounts, and part of it is because I'm interested in learning, and I didn't see the value in them for the longest time, and it's through them that I've made so many different connections for myself, and more importantly for my students. And so without, I think, like taking all of it in and really immersing myself in it, which is kind of like a no-no, I kind of learned to back away from it some. So there is, I mean, I see with my students in school, like they don't want to put the phone down. They want to be on the Snapchat, and they want to be on Instagram and everything. And I said, you know what, you need to put the phone down. Like I read something last week, I finished a book, and it was talking about, unless you fall into a couple of these categories, like you're an active military, and there were some other ones, like you don't need that phone with you all the time. Like put the phones down, have the conversations. But, it's great to rely on, to have information available when you need it, and to connect with family and friends. But you do have to set some parameters and limits for yourself. Otherwise, you can be completely consumed by it, and you lose that interaction and connection with people, like when you're in the same space.
Yeah. And I think we all know that one person or those people who are, I don't want to use the word addicted, but yes, absolutely.
That would be me.
I saw you raise your hand. I didn't want to tell you.
I'm like, my kids tell me, Mom, this is too much. I'm like, I know, it's a problem. I got a problem.
Hey, Jamie, maybe if you got off of social media, you could empty that mail. How much mail you have right now?
I have 100,000 unread emails right now that I just showed on Twitter.
Wow.
Is it AOL?
No, it was Yahoo. It's Yahoo. Yeah. Sorry.
Amy, I know you got a huge Twitter following. So I'm assuming that you check it all the time, I would assume, or a lot. I'd love to hear from you as to what your thoughts are of overusing, or what we can do to stop overusing, or scheduling. You can schedule tweets. So tell us more about how you keep up, and without being that person.
That person.
Yeah, that person.
Twitter has been okay for me as far as keeping up with Twitter. It's been Voxer lately that's gotten a tad bit out of control. My phone was taken away from me this past weekend by my husband because of Voxer. But yeah, sometimes I think it's important, like what Rochelle said about just kind of putting it down and connecting in real life. But I have a friend, Dr. Julie P. Jones. She's a professor at Converse College in South or North Carolina. And she's real big on not just using Twitter for Twitter's sake, like truly using it to connect, not just
NBC.
Oh, there's
Dan.
Dan's not part of this panel. What is he doing on here? I'll mute him.
Yeah, just not using Twitter for Twitter's sake, like really getting in there and connecting with people and not just liking and retweeting, which first of the school year, that's kind of what I'm doing right now because my life is it's a little busy right now at first of the school in Harvey. But yeah, and I love social media. I think there's just has to be a really good even balance between that and your personal life as well. But it's all worth it.
Yeah. I think one of the telltale signs is when you walk out and you're blinded by the sun and you realize what is that yellow ball in the sky. Yeah. So there needs to be a balance. I like that word balance. And social media changes all the time. There's going to be another app, next year or in a couple months. And, we've seen them come and go. So Twitter has obviously withstood the test of time as well as some of the others. Anyone else? I'd love to hear from anyone else about your thoughts on overusing.
With overusing, when you have multiple, this is going back to question 1, when you start finding out that you've signed up for 15 accounts with the same social media feed, that might be a little too much. But I think when you start overdoing it, yeah, you do lose that human connection, but you're also doing it for a lot of the likes. And then you stop focusing on using, let's say, Twitter for a PLN, or you stop using it Twitter for just doing research, and just start posting stuff just for those likes. Like with Snapchat, some people are very concerned about losing their streak between one person and another. They'll go in every day to keep that streak going. When you start focusing on that, I think that's when you've gone a little too far.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good point.
Content is king, right? If there's no real value in what you're putting out there, is it really worth putting it out there?
Yep. I kind of put something out there that had no value too. And I put a picture of 100,000 unread messages, and I enjoyed the conversation. Sometimes you got to have fun, and I think that having people's personality come through in social media, and when you finally meet them in person, and how normal it is to meet them in person because you've had such a great connection on social media, I think is important. But I'm going to chime in only this one time, I promise. But my son definitely overdoes technology with video games and has always struggled in language development. And at one point had literally got to the point where he couldn't pass any spelling tests in his school, which to me, spelling tests, I think are kind of, anyways. But he couldn't pass the spelling test, struggled. No matter what we did, he could not remember first grade. Ended up going and getting him tested. And I was like, why are we letting him play video games when he can't even pass the spelling test? Like, we need to focus. We took away the video games, and within a 1 week, his teacher thought I put him on medicine. And then the second week, he never, ever failed another test and only made 90s or above in his spelling test. Our kids are in overload a lot. We face this a lot with our students. And I think that there is a time where we can definitely see the impact that technology has. I know, Sarah Thomas, if you're out there watching, Sarah, that you talk about brain fog a lot. Mary Alice talks about brain fog a lot. I talk about it a lot. And I think really it's not those exterior things that we want to complain about sleep and just overworked. I think it's technology. I think we're overdoing it, and our brains can only take in so much. And so anyways, I just had to share that story because I think if there's ever a day that I'm going to get a PhD, that's the study I'm going to do it on, is overdosing on technology.
I remember one time I had a conversation with Mary Alice, and we were talking about FOMO. Sometimes I just like to see what's happening out there. And she said to me, well, sometimes you just got to find the JOMO and the joy of missing out. And I like that phrase, that, it's hard to keep up with all of it, but sometimes just to even, if you can unplug and disconnect a little bit, there's some power in that as well.
Yeah, there's I don't remember where I saw this or read this, but it really resonated with me, which is disconnect and reconnect. And that's sometimes what we have to do, is disconnect and reconnect with those people in our lives who we really don't need to use hashtags with. We just need to turn and talk to them.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
All right. Great. Let's move on. I've got another question, and I know everyone's kind of waiting around for number 3, so let's go straight to number 3. How has social media personally or professionally affected you? So
Ding, ding, ding.
I was just about to call on you right now, Rochelle. I was about to say, kind of marinate on that for a little bit while we hear from Rochelle.
I was practicing for Jeopardy on that one. Like, that's my dream. One day, Jeopardy. There it is. And hopefully I know the answer to the question when that happens. But I mean, like back at the end of January when I was at FETC, I was thinking about like, wow, had I not started with one thing with Facebook and all of the ones since then, the people that I wouldn't have connected with and the people that I wouldn't know now, like how different things would be. Looking back, and I was so resistant to start with Facebook. Like I just didn't get it. But then I had to plan my high school reunion for like 600 people, and tracking them down with a phone book, it wasn't going to work. So I finally caved in and got the account and started to connect with friends. And then, you know, Twitter was the same thing. It's like I thought it was just celebrities. I didn't see the value in it. And slowly I started adding more and more to it. And it's from there that like most of my friends are ones that I have met through those forums. And without that, like what connections would I have? And more importantly, like what connections would my students have? Because it's through all of those that I've been able to learn about all of these different things to bring into the classroom and, you know, to be a model for the students as well. So it's funny, the thing that I was so like, no, I'm not going to do it. Like even most recently, like Snapchat, but seeing what people are using it for and how beneficial it can be in education and fun for other things too. I gave it a try, and it's interesting how wrong you can be about something if you just have that mindset where you're like, no, it's only for this without actually trying it out first. So if any of that made sense.
Totally made sense. Oh yeah. I was very hesitant as well. And then the first thing I did when I started social media was I consumed. I just read tweets, followed celebrities and comedians that I listened to or who I listened to. And then I started getting a little more comfortable and started putting my own content out. So yeah. All right. So Alan, Michael, anyone else? Maria, anyone want to chime in here? Oh, Alan, he put both hands up.
I got one.
one.
Yeah,
all right.
I got one. Last year, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colorectal cancer. I am a survivor, but we used Instagram. My wife started an Instagram account and started using it to chronicle my progress from diagnosis to, I don't want to say cure, but end of diagnosis. What's the term that I'm looking for? No evidence of disease. So we spent the entire year chronicling that, and that opened a lot of dialogue for a lot of people to go get tested, to find out what happens when you go through chemo. And we had a lot of questions, and I'm really proud of about my wife. I'm really proud of my wife that she ran this account, and she would spend hours just contacting people, or in one case using Google Translate to talk to someone in South America about colon cancer symptoms and try to help navigate that. So it was a really powerful tool in that case.
Wow, that's it doesn't get any more personal than that. That's a scenario in which that social media helps spread the word, and you probably opened up a lot of people's eyes and made them realize maybe I should go, get checked out. Maybe I should look more into my health and that. So that's a very, very. I'm glad that you opened up and shared that, because we need to hear stories like that as well, where it's because of things like that and those types of accounts and the things that people actually post and put out there that make us really reflect and realize that maybe, we need to, after all is said and done, we need to look out for ourselves, and health is number one. So I'm glad that you shared that with the group.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Alan.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? How has it? Oh, there we go. I got to say, when that light turned off, I got a little nervous. I was waiting for the Annabelle doll to pop up behind you.
I'm still at school, and I think it's motion sensor lights, and they're all here the air's been off for about 2 hours, and they're all here vacuuming and ready for tomorrow because the Wi-Fi is better here than it is at home. Alan, thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. There's a friend of mine, Justin Burke Bickler. I'm sure I'm butchering his last name, but he did the same thing on Instagram when he was diagnosed with testicular cancer, and it was powerful, the amount of people that he affected that went and got checked because of his voice. So thank you for sharing that. So my shout out to social media goes back to my kids. I was inspired to start using Twitter by Kayla Delzer, and she kind of mentored me throughout the whole process from afar. And from there, I got to meet Jamie and Mary Alice. But the whole reason why I started it, and when I started it, my district, my wonderful district, we were not in a social district. So it was blocked to use Twitter, Instagram, things like that in our district. So I was using my own data, a plan to connect with classrooms for my kids, because I knew how much power there was going to be in it. And we were a PBL classroom, project-based learning. And so much of that is connecting with experts, because I'm not the expert at everything. And so social media connected me with people like a Martian expert in Kansas, and gardeners in Southeast Texas, which is my hometown. But I was able to develop lessons and connect my kids with people that were true to that craft as far as it related to our projects. And they walked away from those experiences learning so much more than I could have ever given them with a textbook or a worksheet or a video online. So that was the whole reason why I started getting on social media, was because of my kids and being inspired by a few of my peers. And since then, I haven't looked back. It's been pretty awesome.
That's awesome. We're glad you joined in. Maria, yeah, I see you, Maria. Oh, we're not hearing you though. Let's see.
No.
Now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I have to say that I found you, Hoonuit, through the social network. So that affects me positively in my life. I am a Edmodo ambassador already, and I already follow the Edmodo account in Twitter, and I saw the followers of Edmodo, and I found you, Jamie, first, and then I found you, Hoonuit. So I think it's a great thing to my professional development, because I connect to very valuable people around the world. So that affect that is that the effect that have to me.
That's fantastic. That's so true. And you know, for us in the US, we kind of get stuck in the US. And to be able to branch out, I mean, I'll tell you guys, I've been part of some global events through social media only. And then I literally meet these people. I went to ISTE last summer, and there was a lady that saw my badge. She was looking to get back to her hotel. She saw my badge that it said Ed Camp Global, and she almost fell over. I was with my friend Deborah, and she was like, "You guys are Ed Camp Global?" She had joined in from New Zealand, and she was flew into Colorado last summer from New Zealand, and we happened to cross paths when we had connected through this global event purely on social media. So talk about the power of being connected globally. I think that is a skill our kids are absolutely going to have in the future. And we're so thankful, Maria, for you to join in as an international learning ambassador. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just so I can clarify, it's called Hoonuit, because I've heard a lot of people have a hard time with saying the name, which I did too. I'm not going to lie. It took me a little while to get it. But it's kind of like, who knew it? So just in case you guys forget, that's like and forever, Mary Alice would call it Hoogly. I mean, she just called it Hoogly forever. And so even Curran doesn't even call it Hoonuit. He just calls it Hoogly. So anyways, yes, we all do it, but it is Hoonuit, just so you guys know for the future. Sorry, Gabriel.
Oh, no problem. Do we have time for the last question? I know that we're a little behind, or do we? You think we have time for that last question? Perfect. All right. So my last question to the panel regarding social media is, what is your go-to social media to connect with the rest of the world? Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat. I mean, tell us, what is your go-to tool?
I'll just jump in here first. I mean, my go-to tool is definitely Twitter. I do like Voxer a lot for the connection piece, but for me, Twitter is a way to find other educators to connect with globally. And so many of the projects that we've done with our kids have evolved out of the connections that I've made on Twitter. So while it's affecting me professionally and personally, it's also helping our students. So, I mean, that's one that I guess I would hate to ever see it go away. I don't think it's going to, but that's that's my go-to.
Yeah, that's my go-to as well. As I've tried do the Instagram and all that, but to me, there's nothing like Twitter.
I will agree with Michael. Both, but Twitter and Voxer both. I would say Twitter just because of like everything that's going on that you can follow. But for Voxer, that's my go-to if I want to ask a question and get an answer quickly, and have that conversation going. So I can never just pick one.
Yeah, I would say Twitter, and even though Voxer stresses me out sometimes, I use it quite a bit.
Alan, Maria?
Let's see. Personal, Facebook and Instagram, professional learning, Pinterest and Twitter, and for Pokemon Go, Discord.
Nice. That's awesome.
Pokemon Go.
I'm already working with Instagram and Twitter, and I would like to work with Facebook. I would like to assign to my students, if you were Hitler, how your Facebook will be. Something like that. A project that, like a biography of the specific, a character of history. Something like that. I'd like to try to Facebook.
That's awesome.
Cool. I'm glad. Alan, Pinterest, one of the forgotten ones. People don't talk about Pinterest enough. Love it. I love it. My wife, I need to have a Pintervention with her because she uses it so much. But yes, I'm glad that you guys brought that up. Awesome. Jamie, what about you?
Yeah, MySpace would be my go-to. Oh, we all started there, didn't we? Anyways. Well, you know what? First off, let me just say to everybody that's joined in, this is just, I always leave HoonuitLIVE going, yes, we're so doing this again. And then a month before HoonuitLIVE, I'm like, what was I thinking about doing this again? Because it's a lot of work to get together. But you know what? The incredible talent on our Learning Ambassador team is just letting them have a voice and letting them share, and we all benefit from it. So the panelists, the presenters, our students, our educators, our administrators, all over the place. We have our teachers all over the place. And I cannot thank you guys enough. You all bring such value to learning. And I'm just incredibly honored to be a part of this program with you guys. And I just want to thank everybody that has joined in. We've all been kind of off schedule, so I appreciate everybody being patient about that, especially our last two presenters. That is Gabriel. And, I'm not even going to say sorry to Dan because he totally hijacked the session earlier and was like, oh yeah, everybody, I'm here.
Sorry about that.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I announced myself pretty loudly. Wait, I got to share my video for a second because, hang on. There we go.
This is how I met Dan for the first time before I ever met him in person.
Disney princess castle.
This is how I got to meet him. It was great. So you know what, panelists, thank you guys so much for joining in. Feel free to stay on and be part of the conversation. And one thing I did not mention is what I keep on forgetting to mention throughout this time is that if you register throughout the whole event, we're still accepting registration because everybody that registers every 50, we're giving a $50 gift card to a classroom that was affected by Hurricane Harvey. So if you haven't registered, make sure to register. And I'm going to follow up with more information about all of our presenters and panelists, so that if you did watch and you want more information, that you're going to get that as well, because you'll be able to connect with all of these incredible people and the content that they bring to the table. So love the Princess Castle. Definitely, you know, we're getting some good comments and interaction here within our panel.
I couldn't. You were speaking about something so serious. I had to put it down. I couldn't keep up.
He's like,
talking about hurricane relief and donating money, and sorry for the Disney princess joke.
No, we appreciate it. Sorry, I switched gears on you, Dan. Again, panelists, thank you guys again for joining in. And Dan and Gabriel, I'm gonna hand it over to you guys, because you have some incredible stuff to share about podcasting. I'm gonna be listening in closely.
Cool. I know Gabriel has a lot to share. He tried to jump the ship earlier with that, but actually before he shares and we speak, I did want to mention that that was Jamie, I'm going to give you credit, even if it wasn't your idea. The segue from the social media and global collaboration and all into the podcasting and live streaming, I think is genius, because if we don't talk about that piece, we wouldn't be doing our jobs, I think, as presenters or panelists. Like the amount of sharing and collaborating that comes from those, I guess, media, right? Those individual medium is extremely powerful. So I just wanted to kind of lead in with that and start the conversation with that.
Awesome, thanks, Dan. Are you there, Gabriel?
Yeah, I'm here. Did you want me to start off with the podcasting? Dan, did you want to do the live video? What are you thinking?
Let me just go ahead and unmute myself there. Oh, hi, Alan. Who's waving? I don't know. I think he was saying bye. Yes, I guess I can start off real quick. I don't have much prepared like I think you might, but so I wanted to start by saying that piece about the collaborating. I have not necessarily been like a huge podcast listener. Recently, I've listened more as I've started my own show. But what I have done is I've studied plenty in my life and in my career about leadership. And I read a book a little while back that I really love called Lead from the Heart by Mark Crowley is his name. And he speaks in that book about something called an abundance mentality. And through live streaming, through podcasting, through presentations like this and participating in stuff like this, it's all about sharing. And so having an abundance mentality basically is what all of us educators have anyway, that ability, that passion for sharing information and sharing knowledge with others. So whether it's through podcasting or live streaming, that's what's happening. And it's pretty powerful and it's pretty magical when it does. Before, Gabriel, I turn it over to you and maybe we just bounce some stuff off each other. I did just want to share my screen real quick. So let me know if this is working okay. Just wanted to share. Can you see that?
Almost. We see. Oh, yeah, we see it.
All right. So I just wanted to share two things. A little bit of a shameless plug, but also just to tell you, just to gain some credibility, I guess. So this is my podcast. I'm sure I don't have as many episodes as you. I only have 2, but I think they're pretty good. And the podcast is called Leader of Learning. I have it open in iTunes right now, but you can find it on Google Play and a couple of other platforms. So it's in its infancy. We're just getting going with it, but it's been pretty successful so far. And I'm really enjoying doing it for the stuff that I'm learning and putting out there. And like I said, that abundance mentality, it's amazing what people can learn from each other. It really is. And I'm also going to show, because I want to bring in this piece about, oh man, my computer's being slow. Oh, there it is. I want to bring in this piece about live streaming as well. Can you see that? Yes. All right. So this that I'm sharing right now is Periscope. So it's one of many live streaming platforms that are out there right now. I would be remiss if I did not mention a couple of things. First, Pass the Scope EDU. It was referred to by Mary Alice and Curran earlier today. It's a group of amazing educators from across the country and across the globe who once a month get together and live stream amazing things happening in their schools and in education in general. And every month has a theme, and everybody kind of interprets the theme differently, and they share out for anywhere between, let's say, 5 and 15 minutes, stuff about that theme. Last month's theme was formation, coming together and collaborating like we're talking about here. Next month in October, because of Halloween, our theme is Stranger Ed, like Stranger Things, but with education. So interpret it how you will, and that's our theme. I also want to mention that this particular video that I have up right now, and I'll see if I can play it and if it works. Can you hear that too? Is that really confusing?
Can see it, but we can't hear
That's
it.
okay. It's probably better that you don't. So this is a video live stream that I did to actually talk about Hoonuit. Hoonuit ran a contest back in the spring and said, if you'd be willing to, create an account and go through at least a free trial and take some of our courses, go ahead and share that out. And this is how I chose to do that. I did a live stream. I used OBS Studio, or Open Broadcast Software, I think is what OBS stands for. I streamed live, and then I took that video and posted it all over social media, and I said, here's Who Knew It, this is what it's about, I love it, here's what I learned. And I was able to actually win the contest and thus win myself a trip to the ISTE conference. So that's that. That's my 2 cents about live streaming, and a little tiny bit about podcasting.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you touched upon the Pass the Scope EDU. I participated in, I want to say it was July's, if not August, and then I recorded with Brian Romero Smith Jr. over at ISTE. So cool. It kind of piggybacks right into podcasting. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And can everyone see my screen there? No news means good news. All right, cool. So I kind of left. I know when I jumped the gun earlier, I thought Jamie asked me to go first just in case. So what is podcasting? Here's my shameless plug right here. My podcast is EdTech Bites. It's all things EdTech and food, as I mentioned earlier, 2 of my passions. And, I also have a website / blog that I host, which is edtechbites.com, where people can go and view blog posts as well as podcast episodes. And before I go any further, I want to talk about what exactly a podcast is. A lot of people hear the term podcast thrown around. They don't necessarily know what it means, or, they kind of understand a little concept of it. So by definition, podcast is, oh, here we go. I got to open that in a whole new window. It goes back to the days of the iPod, and it's literally the word iPod with broadcast, come together as one word. And it's almost like a radio stream, but it's on demand, and it's something that you subscribe to, so that anytime a provider creates a new episode, it automatically gets downloaded into your feed. And podcast started off as audio only, and they've kind of evolved to audio and video as well. A lot of the podcast creators are actually setting up camera, if not multi-camera setups, where people can watch their podcast on YouTube and they can replay them. However, the original podcasts that started off were specifically audio. And
can I just I wanted to add one thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned video, and I've already mentioned live video. I think one of the interesting things that we're seeing now with podcasting too is that, of course, you mentioned that they get automatically fed to a stream, and then people could subscribe or listen or download. But also, there are many podcast hosting sites, I guess is what you call them, that actually allow podcasting to happen live as well, just like a live video stream, where listeners to the podcast can listen live and even chat with the podcast's host and or guests if they bring on guests. And so the podcast episodes can be recorded, or people could actually come on and listen live and interact with the host of the show.
Yeah, and it really has become a multi-way conversation, not just a one-way conversation where the end user is taking in only, but now they're actually contributing to it as well. And not only contributing by form of question that, but actually contributing to content as well, kind of like what we've done here with this HoonuitLIVE. So that's in a nutshell what a podcast is. Now, I'm not sure if anyone out there knows that, but this Saturday, the 30th, is International Podcast Day, and there's actually a group of people that have come together and labeled the 30th of September as Worldwide International Podcast Day, where they're going to have live podcast events going on, broadcast from around the world that you can subscribe to and listen to live and participate in as well. So if you want some more information on that, it's internationalpodcastday.com, as well as you can search hashtag International Podcast Day on Twitter to get some more information on that. So I'll be kind of not doing some things, but partaking in that event. So why podcast? So podcast is.
Can I also just say, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
It has nothing to do with podcasting, but I just love that you're using Nearpod to present.
Oh yeah, love it.
Just in the last week, I've done 2 Nearpod trainings at 2 different school districts, and I'm a big Nearpod guy. I'm a Nearpod pioneer. So anyway, proceed.
We're all 3 pioneers, by the way.
Yes, we are.
Dan. Yep.
Yes, we are. And I look at Nearpod as that comfortable pair of shoes. No matter what happens, Nearpod can always be your go-to tool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So why podcast? Well, we live in an era, we live in this age of instant. Everything's instant. I had conversations with family a couple of weeks ago about the news, and they're going to talk about this on the news. Why am I going to have to wait till 6 p.m. to listen to information when I can get it instantly by going to a feed, or going to view some tweets, or going to the news broadcaster's website? I mean, we live in an age where information is instant now, so we do not have to wait for that 6 p.m. show or that 11 o'clock late news feature to tell us what's already out there. So podcast is in my opinion the instant radio, the instant professional development, the instant information. So anything that you want to learn out there, I guarantee you there's a podcast or multiple podcasts based around that topic. Dan, you're talking about leadership and leaders in yours. I'm talking about educational technology. There's
food.
You can't forget the food. So there, no matter what you're looking for, it's out there. It's out there. So that's one thing you got to.
I wanted to mention too, just to back you up and support your points about the instantaneous nature of whether it's news or any kind of content that you're searching for. You said it was in your opinion, but actually I have read research, published research that says that studies have been done, and they show that kids nowadays, millennials, if you will, that's how they prefer to get their information. And of course it changes generationally speaking. But in every generation, there's newer and faster and better ways of getting information. And this is hot and trendy right now, and it may or may not last, but like you said, it kind of went from like the iPod, and now with smartphones having all sorts of access to music apps and radio apps and everywhere that you could find a podcast. There's just there's a ton of content, really, really good content out there now.
Absolutely. And it's instant. it's what we need. It's what we want. It's what we're going to. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, the information's out there and it's instant. I mean, you really, well, I'm going to backtrack. I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but I'm going to go ahead and share a couple of resources here. So if you're interested in listening and starting to kind of jump on this podcast train, there's a great website that's run by Chris Nesi. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him. He runs the House of EdTech podcast, which is a great podcast, basically all things education and educational technology as well. And he decided to kind of start his own podcast network centered around education. So what we have here is just a collection of different podcasts and different podcast episodes that you can listen to all around the theme of education. And there's also, you can literally see a list of all the podcasts, not platforms, but actual podcasts that are out there that are a part of this network. Hopefully EdTech Bites will be up there soon. I've been in contact with him about getting it up there.
I have as well. I just think
good. I was just about to ask you.
It's and actually, Mr. Chris Nesi of House of EdTech fame. He's a contact of mine. We've not met in person, but we've spoken now. He actually just joined a group that I run on Voxer, and the group, actually, the topic is growth mindset, but he came in because we were having a conversation about podcasting, similar to the conversation that you and I are having right now. And that's why I love that this topic was brought up on HoonuitLIVE this month. And so Chris is, he's been great at, helping me and others like me get started in podcasting. He's a great resource. He's a great guest to have on podcasts. His podcast is great. He's been very, inspirational and instrumental at basically bringing educators into using this medium more. And his podcast network is powerful. And I would like mine to be on there too, but we'll see. I think I need to grow it a little bit more first.
Well, what better way to grow it than putting it right here for educators, right? Yeah, that's our core audience. So what better way? So this it's literally education podcast. I'm sorry, edupodcastnetwork.com. And not only the world of EdTech podcasts is not limited to this. These are just some of the ones that are featured on here. But whatever podcast provider you use, if you're an iOS user, there's a native podcast app, which I think is just called Podcasts, that's pre-installed on all iOS devices. If you're an Android user, Google Play has some great ones. Spotify has some, not a whole lot, because I understand there's a difficult process to actually get yours approved on there. But there's also other ones. I personally use Beyond Pod, but there's also Castbot, and there's a bunch of different ones, and they basically all pull from Apple Podcasts. So once if you're interested in creating a podcast, one of the first things you're going to want to do is submit your podcast to be approved for the Apple Podcast,
which, by the way, is really easy. I guess it kind of depends on what you're using to create your podcast, and I don't think we'll get into all of those ways tonight, but I use something called Spreaker, which to my knowledge was sort of one of the first easy to use podcast hosting sites. But no matter what you use, I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give is to learn about, identify, and really see how you can take the RSS feed of the podcast and then bring that to other sites and services like Google Play, like iTunes. And it really does make, again, depends on what you use, but it really is actually an easy process. I think some people are like, oh my God, you have a podcast on iTunes. Like, wow, you're nice and official. I'm like, really? I just copied and pasted a link from my RSS feed that says every time I upload or, what's the word I'm looking for? Every time I publish a new episode, it just automatically feeds into iTunes. It's a pretty beautiful thing.
I had a conversation earlier with a former colleague and friend. Well, he's not a former friend; he's still a friend. Former colleague, who's interested in starting a podcast, and I had a half-hour conversation with him on the way home about how really easy it is. All you really need is just a couple tools: a laptop, a computer, a microphone, and some content.
And not only easy, but could be cheap. I mean, really, really inexpensive to do. As a matter of fact, if you're listening, ISTE, I've put together a proposal to do a session on podcasting on a dime. All right, that's my spiel. So, I mean, like literally, if you want to just buy a microphone, or if you happen to have a microphone laying around, or even if you don't and you don't care that much about like the audio quality, like a pair of headset, a headset with a microphone or earbuds or something, you can actually do a podcast with little to no money, little to no equipment, seriously. And I think, again, people listen to podcasts and they think, oh man, that sounds so great. But a lot of people are actually making it happen with not a lot of equipment and not a lot of money invested into it. So.
Hey, Dan, how do we find you? Because I just found EdTech Bites and I just shared it out on YouTube, but where else can we find you to be able to, if I'm on iTunes right now, what am I going to look up?
Thanks for asking. I did share my screen a little while ago, and so some people may have been able to see it, but
would you like to share it again? I can unshare mine.
That would be awesome. I think I
Yeah.
still have it up. So the podcast is called Leader of Learning, and that comes from, hang on one second. Here it is. Let me share my screen. So Leader of Learning is basically what I started calling my website and blog. And so then I just took that name and title and ran with it. And now that's my what do you call it? My flagship podcast. Can you see that yet? I don't know if it's showing up yet.
I got you, actually. I'm adding it right now.
I am.
All right, so that's the podcast. And if my computer is not going to be too slow, I'll just show you the website real quick. So Leader of Learning is the podcast. leaderoflearning.com is the website and blog. Like I said, the podcast is produced on and published to Spreaker, but if people are more inclined to listen on Google Play or iTunes or some of those other podcast apps that Gabriel mentioned, then they could probably find it on there as well. Like I said,
thank you.
We're kind of in the beginning stages so far. I got 2 published episodes. The first one, I spoke with Sarah Thomas from EduMatch about being a connected educator and the power of getting connected. And then in episode 2, I spoke with Dr. Josh Felice about transformational leadership and basically school turnaround and taking struggling schools and making them into great schools. So 2 really awesome guests and 2 powerful episodes so far. And I'm really looking forward to adding some more episodes very soon.
I would love to have you on one of the episodes. And you know who's also a great guest?
Likewise.
Jamie. We had an in-depth conversation. I want to say it was like episode 6 or 5, but Jamie, we had a really good conversation that day. And
I was gonna crack on her and say like we talk too much anyway because we listen to each other on Voxer and stuff. But I love talking to Jamie. I assisted. I don't even know what you can call it. I assisted on presenting with Jamie at ISTE. I kind of just like horned my way in and I sat up front and I was like, oh, look at me, I'm cool. I know a lot about AR and VR, but it was fun. No, we have a good time. And listen, both of you guys absolutely have an open door policy when it comes to being guests on the show. Definitely.
Well, I'm going to tell you guys purely from the perspective of, I love Voxer because when I'm traveling or when I'm on the road and I can't talk, but I just want to have it on my own time to go back and listen to PD. I love that about Voxer, but I feel like podcasts would do the same thing. I want to go back and I just want to listen, as I'm driving somewhere. And I never gotten into it. And I didn't even know where to start, to be honest with you. I just went on for the first time into the podcast app. How sad is that? And
So
subscribe to it.
Voxer essentially is or could be a form of podcasting. And as a matter of fact, Gabriel, I don't know if you know him or not, or Jamie, he's kind of in the area. You know, Jamie said this before about Michael. He lives in Buffalo, so he's in the Northeast and wherever. So you guys are in Texas. You must know him. Jorge Rodriguez.
Yeah, Jorge. Yeah.
He's a phys ed teacher, has a podcast. And the way he does it is he collects his sound through Voxer and then edits it and cuts it all up and puts it out there as single episodes of his podcast. It's pretty cool.
You know, we've been talking a long time about doing a podcast on augmented and virtual reality in physical education. So yeah, there's so many people that are talented that have a voice. And I think podcasting for our students is something that we need to get our kids doing this. So maybe you guys could break it down to like the simplicity of like, how did you start? What tools did you use? So like 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that people can just jump on and start using it.
I have an idea, Dan. Why don't we do an episode together on how to create a podcast?
Awesome. That's a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, we're still early enough in the game where we're not going to forget.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Even Michael just said that's a great idea before he signs off. So Jamie, you brought up the point about students, and I just want to say, like, one of my goals and passions at this stage of my career in my role as an instructional coach at my school is to get technology out of just the hands of the teachers to present content, but more into the student hands to create content. And I think this is one of so many ways that students can use multimedia in the classroom. And I was actually at an Ed Camp a couple weeks ago, Ed Camp Manhattanville in New York. Yes, I actually live near New York. So at this Ed Camp, I proposed a session on podcasting, and I was surprised at how many people wanted to come who were just learning about it, didn't know about it, were kind of dabbling in it. But a couple of people had said that either they have started with students or plan to bring in students and create like a student-led or classroom or school podcast where the students really are the focus of it.
Yeah, that's powerful.
That'd be an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I would so listen to that. I would listen to the heck out of that podcast, because what a fantastic thing to hear from our students. Like, they have so many incredible ideas, and all we have to do is just give them the platform to do it.
I think the race will be on now also for one of us to get one of those kids from the HoonuitLIVE panel or presenters to come on and be a guest. Curran's in my state again, like we're all in the Northeast, so we must be close. Actually, they are kind of close. I would think that they're probably within a half an hour to an hour from me. But that's the cool thing about podcasting. You don't need to be in person, right? You talk to someone. Yeah. I usually do my my interviews for my podcast over Skype, but there are many other ways of doing that as well.
I use Google Hangouts for mine. And, there's local people as well where we'll just go out, we'll find a restaurant, pick a local spot, order some food, and just record.
That's cool. So the question was basically to back up and talk about kind of the basics and where to start. So I guess step one is kind of picking step one really is picking a topic or a brand, right? Like, what is it that you're going to focus on? And that can be really general or it can be really specific. I think mine is somewhere in the middle, like leadership in education is fairly broad, but it's, there you go.
Yeah, there's my topic right there.
That's the food we're talking about. And so I got derailed by the food. So I think step one is like, what is it that you want to share? And it doesn't have to be you sharing, it's guests that are coming on, things that you are reading that you want to talk about, whatever you're passionate about bringing to the listeners. And then I think the next step is at least considering what kind of equipment you're going to use to get started. I mentioned before you could do it with little to no money. I think for me, I basically just have a microphone, and that's pretty much all I really needed. I have a microphone that plugs in through the USB into my computer. If you want to get fancy schmancy and have one that has an XLR, like one of those 3-pronged systems that you see, the plugs that you see sometimes on those professional microphones, you could do that too. They sound even better, but then you need a mixer to plug in through USB to the computer. So you're adding a step, but again, it depends on what you want to sound like. If you want your sound quality to be a little bit better, then you might have to spend a little bit more money or get some more equipment. But you can do it on a really basic level. You could do it with a headset like I'm wearing. You could even do it with a headset like what you guys are wearing with the earbuds. It's all up to the creator and the host of the podcast about how great they want it to sound. I use a $50-ish Blue Snowball iced microphone. Sounds really good. It's not the best of the best. It's not the worst of the worst. But it does the trick, and that's about what I was willing to spend to get the podcast and everything going anyway. So that's what I did.
I went a different route. I bought a Zoom H4n Pro because I wanted to be mobile and I didn't want to have to carry a laptop. So that's another thing to consider if you are thinking about creating a podcast. So I have this little recorder that runs on 2 AA batteries, and it has 2 XLR inputs. And I purchased these ATR 2100 mics. What I really enjoyed about these mics is they have XLR and USB, and I can plug in my headset directly to them and hear myself. So, I spent a little bit more on that because I wanted to be a little bit more mobile, and I got permission from my wife. So I figured might as well. So, and the other thing is the other big thing to consider when you're thinking about creating a podcast is, okay, you have your content, you know what you're going to talk about, you know what niche you're going to kind of carve or add to. What is your publishing schedule? Are you going to do it weekly? Are you going to do it bi-weekly? Are you going to do it by the month? So you got to think that out ahead of time. And there's times where you just grab people, and because you might have had a conversation, or you reach out to someone and they say, hey, I'd love to do this, or they reach out to you, and you kind of have to be a little bit flexible in that way, because especially if you're going to be interviewing people, you have to think about their schedule, not necessarily yours all the time. So that's another thing to consider as well when you're creating is like Dan said, the equipment, and then also the schedule, how you're going to release, what platform you're going to use to host your podcast, because they have to physically sit somewhere or virtually sit somewhere, and then that's the feed where Apple, Google Play, and all these services will pull those podcast episodes from every time you publish. So you guys mind if I share my screen really quickly?
Go for it.
All
and
right.
do you guys have to have a radio voice in order to be a podcaster?
That's funny. Some people might tell me that I actually have a face for radio, but no. In all seriousness, I think that look, it probably helps. I'm not gonna lie. I think, and I have actually been on the radio before. I should probably mention that. In college, I studied broadcast journalism. I went to the University of Connecticut, and I broadcasted sports events and basketball games for what I would consider one of the best NCAA basketball programs in the country. And then when I graduated with a degree in journalism, I worked in broadcast sports radio for a little while before I started teaching. So I do have some background in it in terms of speaking on the radio and broadcasting and producing, but you don't need to. And I think that's the beauty of whether it be live streaming or podcasting. It doesn't matter what you look like, and it doesn't matter what you sound like. Are there people out there who may tune you out because they can't listen to you? Maybe. And actually, that's one of the reasons why, for me, this is another thing about like branding yourself and your podcast, your product. It's a goal of mine to keep my podcast episodes to 15 minutes or less, so people don't get tired of listening to me or whoever I may have on. And it's also because once I go longer than 15 minutes, I have to pay more to my podcast hosting site. Yes, so yes. My goal is, the way I've branded my podcast is I want it to be inexpensive, because I want other people to see that they can do it too for little to no money. But I also want it to be enjoyable and listenable. Is that a word? Probably not. But anyway, I want people to be able to like enjoy it for up to 15 minutes and then they're done and they don't have to keep listening for, I mean, look, there are some great podcasts out there. I'm not going to name them, but great podcasts that go like an hour long, and I can't sit through it. I really can't. And I know that some people will listen in multiple sessions. It's just not my thing. So anyway, that was a long-winded answer, and my way of saying it really doesn't matter what you look like or sound like, but just go for it.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to show here was one thing I like doing is I like getting ideas for future episodes and that. So I put this Flipgrid topic out back in July to get some feedback. And if anyone out there is interested, the code is F12768. And you type that into Flipgrid and you can actually suggest what you'd like to hear on an upcoming episode of the podcast. So who would you like to hear from? What topic would you like to hear about? Would you like to be, featured on the episode and sit down and chat with me virtually or in person? And so I like it to be open-ended. I like some feedback. I want to give out what the people want to hear and what they want to learn. So that's one idea that I had that I put out. So anyone out there, Flipgrid, the code is F12768. So if you guys want some feedback, or not feedback, but you want some insight as to what you want to hear and learn about, please, I want to hear from you on that Flipgrid. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing there.
Guys, I was going to say it is 8:54. I know we totally went into your time with our other sessions, and you guys, I still have no idea about podcasts. So here's what we're going to do. We need to set up a time where you guys can walk us through, like, what would it be ideal for a student that wants to go totally free? Is that possible? Is that something that they can do? And maybe even look at alternatives. All right, if you want to spend this amount of money, you can get this, and this is where you want to spend it. But I think having something as a resource like that for our kids would be really, really cool for us too, for anybody. I probably won't do podcasts. I'll continue with Twitter chats and live video stuff. But I think that it is a really powerful way of communicating. And I think for sure, it's certainly the way of the future, and being able to kind of personalized learning, right? Go and find what you need and listen as much as you need to. And so much to be thankful for. Dan, you came straight from a training, jammed home with a Princess Castle, and joined.
I did actually. It was at some point I realized, probably albeit too late, part of the confusion was that the times were listed in Central Time. I'm in East Coast time, so I had more time than I thought I would. But still, yeah, I love Nearpod. I got to do a training, but I was like, oh man, I got to rush home and do this. And then I was like, oh wait, it's not for me. It was 9 o'clock that finally I came on. So
yeah,
at least I was able to put the kids to sleep, and you get to see the castle. But not the crazy kids running around in the back.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. And Gabriel, I mean, you just took a weight off my shoulders by moderating all of these panelists, and you did an incredible job. And you absolutely, without a doubt, have a radio voice. Like, no doubt you have it. And so it was perfect because I feel like the flow was great. And thank you so much for joining in and sharing your expertise and passion, both of you, and for everyone that joined in. They all had we're full of experts, right? We're full of just incredibly talented people. It's so great to be a part of this. And the community and helping one another, everybody joined in and is willing to share and connect. And I can guarantee all three of those kids would be privileged to be part of your podcast. So
I think we would be privileged.
Yeah,
those kids are
on that one, Dan. Yeah.
I think it's a win-win on both sides, getting their word out for sure. So thank you guys so much for joining in, for being part of HoonuitLIVE. And we know we are going to do this again. It's probably going to be a quarterly event, and keep it fresh, keep it different, keep it something that's, really just sharing out people's passion. And who knows what will come next. with HoonuitLIVE. But I'm excited. So thank you guys again for being a part of it. And at this point, it is time to say goodbye and close this down. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
Hoonuit.
Good chatting with you. And Jamie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll use the radio voice. Thank you for tuning into #HoonuitLIVE. We'll catch you on the next time and same bat channel. Thank you.
Good night, guys.